previously in the book, we had a scene where he was like, no one's ever, like, cared for you properly, you know? Like, we know he knows she has, like, serious abandonment issues and has a fucked up relationship to almost everyone in her life, and he's like, you know what she needs? Me to make it worse. Quack.
Welcome to the Little Duck Book Club with duck number 1.
Ren, and duck number 2.
Ta-da! And I think we have a first again, because we have a book that even I didn't like.
I was about to say first contemporary romance, I suppose, but you were like, no, because we hate it.
Is it our first contemporary romance? I mean, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is, because before we did like romantasy books, but now we're venturing into an even worse place, an Ali Hazelwood book.
Listen. I have some history with this author in the way that I read a lot of her books. I read The Love Hypothesis when it first came out, a couple months after it came out. And I really liked it because it was an obvious fan fiction, and that's something I enjoy. Yeah. And then her second book, I was like, okay, the same thing in a different color. Got it. And then the third book comes out, and I'm like, Miss Hazelwood, it's getting ridiculous. And then she was like, oh, guys, I'm going to go in a completely different direction for my next book. Have it here. Bride. By me, Ali Hazelwood. And I was like, oh, I don't think I like this. And I think we went over, like, books with a little bit more of a spooky context.
Yeah.
Or something we wanted to read. So he said, oh, you know what? There's Bride by Ali Hazelwood.
And was this a scary experience? Yeah.
It depends on which way you're looking at it.
Yeah, many places in the book turning to my friend, Mom, please pick me up, I'm scared. I don't want to be here anymore.
Take it away from me. Like, can you read the next chapter? I just can't. I'm done. I don't even know where to start, to be honest. Let's maybe start with the premise. What's happening? I think that's...
Yeah. That's a good place to start, I think. So, Bride is... I feel like if you're clicking on this video, you probably already know, but yeah. Bride is a urban fantasy romance in which we follow our main character, Misery Lark, who is getting married to a werewolf, Lo.
I can't even remember.
Moreland. I was like, what was his last name? Moreland. Because werewolves love having more land to run around. Sorry. No. Anyway, she's a vampire. He's a werewolf. It's like a political alliance. It's, an arranged marriage. And Misery is only agreeing to it because she has her own agenda that she's following. And so now they're stuck together trying to make this interspecies romance work, which sounds at least somewhat compelling as a summary, but unfortunately Ali Hazelwood made the bold and new choice to go with the least compelling version of everything that happens in this plot. So all of it is really, really boring.
I think it was a fine venture for her into urban fantasy, dip her toes a little bit, but she should just turn around 180 and go back to what she was doing before.
Yeah, I will admit, I also have, well, not really history, but I do already have like a negative view of Ali Hazelwood, given that she has publicly in interviews admitted to like not really, I can't describe it as not really caring about what she writes. She's like, oh, I don't really have ideas. My editor gives me like tropes and stuff she wants to see, and I just put that in a book and then write that. And I have so much disdain for this kind of approach to writing. It's like, it shows. Like, shit, you don't have ideas. This is the boringest version of everything you could have done with this. Like... I think this is exactly what I'd expect from somebody who says, yeah, I don't actually come up with my own book ideas. What?
Oh my, can you maybe find an interview if able, and like put it into the notes of the video? Because I would love to read that as well.
I'll try to find the link to at least like that excerpt. Because like I remember reading it and being like, oh wow, this is really bad. Romance readers deserve better than whatever this is. It's not good.
The one thing that made me go, oh shit, like she's serious about this stuff is when the first one, Love Hypothesis, is a Reylo fanfic, right? Mm-hmm. And she had to change the names and stuff and like the obvious Star Wars connections when publishing, but decided to name the love interest Adam, like the actor Adam Driver who plays Kylo Ren. And like, I don't know how I would feel being Adam Driver and having somebody write that, like, at least with all of the Harry Styles fan fictions, right? The that get published, they give them different names. They're all British and hot and have brown hair, but different names. That's literally called Adam.
I think it would have been even funnier if the female character had been called Daisy. I think that would have been a power move.
Daisy
I think
Adam.
that would have been really, really, really funny.
Probably, I guess, maybe she didn't do that because she was like, this is a bit, like, too far. Or
she's like, then it sounds like RPF, which this isn't. This is specifically Reylo. This is not.
Or also, like, she is supposed to be the kind of self-insert character in a way, which Rey is in a lot of Reylo fanfiction.
Yeah,
like the
that's
stand-in for people. So maybe it's like, I don't care about Daisy Ridley. Pretty, but no, I wanna romance Adam Driver.
She's like, any brown-haired girl will do. We don't need Daisy Ridley for this.
Brown hair, freckles, let's go.
That's enough. But
the same approach here. It feels like there wasn't much care for the character themselves.
I feel like maybe if this had been fan fiction, any of the characters could have been more interesting. You know, if somebody else had already built the base for like an interesting character and character dynamic, this would not have been this bland. But legitimately, it's not good, and I don't recommend reading it. It's not funny bad. It's not even bad in the way that you get mad enough that it's still entertaining. Like something like From Blood and Ash. Like, Blood and Ash is still funny. It's too long to be consistently funny, but some parts of it are so outrageously stupid that they're funny, or at least entertaining even while you're mad.
Yeah.
But this is just so boring. This is like eating plain oatmeal for every meal for like weeks on end. You do not want any more of this.
It's oatmeal with water, not even with milk.
It's not even with milk.
Oatmeal with water.
It's so fucking boring. I feel so bad saying this, but like legitimately, this book was so nothing. It made me tired every time I read it. Just thinking about it made me tired. My notes are so much more limited than for other stuff because every time I sat down to think about it, I was like, I'm so tired. I don't want to think about this anymore. I hate this.
Honestly, it's regarding the lack of dimension of the character and everything. I think this is, it's like a infectious fanfiction disease. As in fanfiction, you write about characters that usually the person who reads it knows, already have a perfect like view of who the character is. So there's not a lot of need to supply extra information. And that's how it feels reading this book as well. It feels like I should be knowing more stuff about these characters already because I'm not getting anything. It's like, oh, the world's just lackluster. It's just there. Boom, take it. So it's like, we're not getting anything. But since it's not building on any foundation either, it just goes into nothing, and nothingness leaves us bored.
Yeah, that's also. I'm trying to find a good way to say this because I am not a romance reader. I don't care about I've said this before. It's not because I think the genre is like worse than others. It's just not personally interesting to me. It's the same way I don't read like, what do I also not read? I don't read like superhero fiction. It's just not compelling to me by itself. But I also understand that, like, romance has a very specific, as a genre, like, expectation from a readership perspective, because I have dabbled in writing. I've seen a lot of, like, writing advice. I've watched a lot of videos. I read a lot of stuff. And especially concerning romance, there are, like, pretty clear expectations for, like, plot beats and, like, characters. And, like, in the universe that is romance fiction, there are certain archetypes and expectations that, like, repeat over and over. And I feel like this might be the case of that. It is not fan fiction in the traditional sense, but it's basically just taking things from the literary canon of romance that are generally popular or common and just using them, but not, like, they're cliches at this point. She doesn't really do anything to build on those characters and interrogate why my character who fits those tropes has these and what makes them unique and, like, why they tick like this. It's just like, oh yeah, this is just how a love interest behaves. This is just how a female main character behaves, so that's just what they do.
She doesn't really apply the principles.
Yeah, it's like, tropes are perfectly fine. They just become cliches if you don't actually put any effort into, like, thinking through them. Because, like, nothing wrong with, like, a main character who's, like, I don't know, depressed or whatever. But you can't just take this and just throw it at the audience and expect them to be like, oh yeah, I get it, I feel it. You need to explain to me why. You need to show me this character being like this. You can't just, throw it at me and expect me to do the work to make her interesting in my own mind. So I feel like it's not quite fan fiction, but it's similar to that because it's just derivative of a certain, like, existing set of tropes and, like, existing canon, but it's, not a specific one work, but it's, like, a collection of similar works, and that's what it reads like.
I feel like
that's why the fan fiction feel is kind of there, but it's also kind of empty.
I totally agree. It makes a lot of sense, like, when thinking about it. I think the thing that's missing is it doesn't feel like she said like, oh, I want to write this vampire werewolf story, and I want to, like, get XYZ points across, and I'm using the tropes to write this because I enjoy the tropes, But as you said, it feels like that initial motivation is lacking, and she's like, I like the tropes or whatever, and then she tried to build a story around that.
Weirdly enough, it's like, it feels, even though it has a singular author, it feels like written by committee in the way that it feels like nothing was chosen because somebody cared, but it was chosen because that's just a thing that happens in these sorts of stories.
Yeah.
And like, oh, this could appeal to our target audience, which is crazy because I feel like most people who write about werewolves and vampires have specific reasons why they're horny about either or both. And this reads so disinterested in the topic that it's crazy to me. Because, like, you can say what you want about, like, Twilight or whatever, but you can tell that Stephenie Meyer is into vampires. She thinks vampires are hot and interesting. I don't get this feeling from Ali Hazelwood, though. I don't think she thinks vampires are, but I also don't think she's team werewolf really either. I don't think, because none of the specific werewolf things are given much attention or attraction from the characters. It's just, Lo's just a nice guy with, like, a commanding presence, but you can get that in a normal guy. Like, his werewolfness doesn't actually mean anything.
His werewolf
for the story. It's not the things that are supposed to make the reader horny about him don't actually relate to that. Even, like, the nodding thing seems like an afterthought, more like a marketing strategy, as like, ooh, this has nodding in it, isn't that crazy? And not as in somebody who was like, yeah, I think it's hot when that happens in werewolf story. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I had to have a chuckle at his werewolfness because it sounds like it's like addressing like a king or something. Like his werewolfness.
His werewolfness.
No, I totally
New title
agree.
unlocked.
I was about to say it felt more like a mafia wife story.
Yeah, but
I mean, he's
also
whisking
for that,
her
it's like
away
the
in
mafia
his-
is way too nice, which is also crazy.
Yeah, but that's a typical mafia
Yeah.
boss story, you know.
That's true.
They go to the pretty house in Italy and realize, oh my god,
They're in
all
the
these
countryside. Yeah, everything.
all these people are actually nice, and we're all eating oranges and lemons, and you know, in the middle somebody shoots someone.
Oh, your mafia boyfriend just starts eating a lemon like an apple.
Just bites it. But that's
And
how
the
it
heron
felt.
just like watches this and is like, I can't not fuck him.
That's just the way it felt. It was like, you know, we have mafia.
Yeah.
If it was a mafia boss story, I think it would
Honestly,
have been more
this
enjoyable.
does also feel like, oh yeah, the two sides of like the different, you know, mafia families feuding, and you have
Exactly.
like oh my, I didn't even connect that at all because I don't have like these tropes like present in my brain. But now that you say them, it is that. Oh my god, it literally is that. Oh,
Especially the story, especially the scene with the plane, right? Where
I
he
feel
has like
so
his own
stupid
private
not
plane.
seeing it now. Oh my god. Holy shit.
No, but really,
I'm losing my book analysis credentials here. What the
I was constantly thinking like it's just a mafia boss story.
This is just 365 days.
Honestly, the plane scene, I
Yeah.
had like a reaction where I had to think of 365 days because in the beginning he's in a plane and he goes to get like a blowjob or something from the flight attendant, and I was like, I had the same plane in my head when they had their scenes there because I was like, this is just Are You Lost, Baby Girl? You know.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, in the book, it's like a tiny plane which only has like a cockpit, right? They don't actually, it's not really a passenger plane.
No,
but like, yeah,
but
I do get it. Like, I do get, yeah, the vibes are there, man. The vibes. Maybe she did watch it and was like, some parts of this I can recycle.
with the horniness around the werewolves as well as like the biting and the vampire stuff, I was like, there's no way, because Baldur's Gate came out after, but all the people writing Astarion smut wrote that better than she did.
Yeah, because they're into it. Like,
Yeah.
this feels like somebody who's not actually into any of those parts at all, having read some of this and being like, okay, yeah, I can see what other people think, and just taking, like, those scenes and transplanting them into their own novel with, like, obviously different sentences, but, like, just taking the ideas and because, like, for a romance book with several sex scenes, it doesn't feel very horny to me. Because it's so bland. Like, I think I've said this before about a different book, but it does really read like somebody who's just imitating horniness and not actually, like...
Yeah.
Who's not somebody who's actually into the things they're writing about, which, I mean, that's fine. You don't have to be. But on the other hand, then I'm like, why are you writing about vampires and werewolves if you don't think it's hot? Like,
I think the only
why bother?
the only scene that was, at least for me, sort of hot, and I was like, oh, this is like, oh, we're getting frisky, is when they are on the plane. And he's like, oh, I have to, like lick your throat at least once so you smell like my spit, or whatever the idea behind that was.
Yeah.
Before he turns her around to do like the humping thing, just the throat stuff. I was like, ooh, this is actually... I'm liking this. But the rest of it...
Especially the blood drinking scenes feel so performatively horny to me. It's difficult to describe. Because, like, I like vampires. I do think vampires are sexy. I think vampires biting people is fun. I do get it. And I have read it many times, and none of these were as not horny as, like, sure, yes, the characters are in the story literally humping each other, but that's not enough, right? Like it's not written in a compellingly, like in a way where I'm like, oh yeah, I can see why you think it's hot. Like it does not come across at all.
I feel like a huge issue, not just in the structuring and world building, which we have to get to later, is just the style of writing. And I think that what takes out the horniness of most of the scenes is how, this sounds dumb, how descriptive it is. It's like, I don't need the specifics of how deep something is in somebody else's body part, you know? Or
no, she's like, taking out like a ruler and measuring.
That's and all of that takes away from the horny. Like the basic 3D space where are people like located in.
Yeah, it's
that's necessary.
It's very focused on like outside description and a lot less on sensation, which I feel like is what makes it horny usually. Which again, very very strange because like vampires and werewolves lend themselves to horny posting because people are horny about that. Like, right? There are parts. But no, I think Ali Hazelwood is just, unfortunately, not enough of a monster fucker to write this compellingly. And even when on the monster fucking scale, vampires and werewolves are very much on like the low end of the spectrum, right? She's too normie to like write this compellingly, which I mean, I guess is why it might appeal to other people who are very not specifically into it, who just want to read a romance where this is like a little bit of flavor. I guess maybe I don't even know if this went over well. I actually don't know how this did compared to her other books. If this did worse or if it did, the same.
I didn't look into that. I felt like there's a consensus that the Love Hypothesis was the best. Then it goes down. People read Bride, and I think they usually mostly liked it because it was something else. But I feel like there was an overlap from other people who would not read her books. But
who wouldn't read Ali Hazelwood, but who would read vampire werewolf stuff.
Yeah.
And who then were like, girl, I've read so much better vampire werewolf shit. What is this?
I just think the biggest problem is that there's not a lot of introspection. No, not introspection. Or introduction to characters' thoughts. Like, we have a what's the POV called? Like from
first
person, thank you. We have a first person perspective, and you would think that we get to know more about how Misery
you'd
feels.
Think that, however, Misery is too busy being snarky and delivering quippy one-liners 3 times a page to have any kind of interesting stuff going on.
Like, the fun thing about quippy characters, especially if it's from a first person perspective, is that they say things and then you find out how they actually feel and you get the honest, like, earnest perspective without them saying it. But with Misery, you don't.
The thing is also that, like, again, a competent author could also make that work. You can have a character who is even internally, like, quipping about everything because they're so out of touch with themselves and so scared of their own emotions to ever be honest with anyone. But then they need to crash. That's the thing. Yeah. If you write a character like that, they need to break down and you need to know, oh yeah, this is all facade. Not like, of course they're fucked up. Like, no normal person has this kind of inner monologue. No normal person has to constantly insist to themselves that, oh, nothing's a big deal, everything's funny, oh, look how well I'm dealing with everything by being quippy and funny and, like, saying how little everything affects me because I'm so depressed. Like, it's...
Yeah, you can't...
It's not compelling without seeing how pathetic your character is deep down. Because, like, you have in Six of Crows, you have both Nina and Cass who are, like, quippy and have funny or mean lines that are very quotable, but inside, they're both deeply fucked up. And, and especially for Cass, like, oh yeah, he's kind of pathetic inside, which explains why he's like that to other people. But Misery's just nothing.
Misery should be. She was given away as a child to
Yeah.
like a group of people who don't like her. She had a numerous amount of threats and like assassinations and risks to her life. Like she's been an outsider every place she goes to because she doesn't fit in anywhere. She should be more like that, you know?
Yeah, the crazy part about Misery is that she has, on paper, a deeply compelling character setup, which then, in a stroke of like evil genius, goes nowhere. Ali Hazelwood was like, you know what, I'm gonna come up with a really, really compelling backstory for an interesting and like very like, you know, tortured character, and you know what I'm gonna do with it? Nothing. She's just gonna behave like a normal person and be super quippy all the time. She's not gonna like have actual hang-ups. She's just gonna mention how like sad and broken she is sometimes, but it's not reflected in her actions at all, or her behavior or anything. Like, it's just,
you know those moments when people like write songs and then they try to sell them to the artists, and then you're kind of sad that another artist didn't say yes to the song. I feel like the premise itself and the story and the layout was a good idea, and I just wished another author
a better author had
would have
like tried
picked it up instead of her.
Because really, like, Misery, like, spent her childhood being ostracized and then the rest of the majority of her life being in a position where she was, even without, like, assassination attempts, extremely aware that everyone around her was willing to kill her at any moment when it became politically viable and reasonable.
Yeah.
Like, she was entirely unsafe through her entire childhood and, like, into adulthood. It is crazy that she does not behave weirder. This woman should, like, have serious hang-ups. But then she's not relatable anymore. Then she's not your quirked-up white girl protagonist anymore who has, like, funny one-liners and eats peanut butter out of the jar in the most she sticks her finger into the jar. That's disgusting. Who does that? I'm glad she almost died. I was so,
It's like instant
I was
karma.
so sad when she didn't. I was like, I know she's the protagonist, but God, I wish, man.
But no. And the only compelling plus point I first saw was her relationship with Serena, a character whom we only get to meet like at the very end of the book. And I was like, this sounds interesting. This sounds like a fun connection, and she's important enough for her. And it sounded a little bit like the whole Bryce and Danica situation, where it's like, I have this best friend who has been my rock and everything. And I was like, oh, please, you know, this time let us find this character and let us get introduced to them. So I was like even more bummed by the overall. And honestly, Misery should have just gone away into the rainbow with Serena. I was like, we should have made this gay.
The thing is, I also just don't like Serena. I think the text is so desperate to make you like her. It's like, oh, she's so important to me, but she's kind of an asshole. And also, I don't care, because she's very little of a character and more of a plot device.
As soon as you meet her, you're like, who is this person? She's mean.
It's also that she's just not a faceted character at all. Everything we hear from Misery about her is just the same information reiterated over and over again. We don't really get a lot of, you know, variance in there. But then, when we meet her, she's just the same quippy one-liner factory as Misery. She doesn't really have much personality to work with, and then you find out, oh yeah, they were so close, but she actually kept an insanely huge, life-threatening, possibly secret for a long time now for actually no good reason other than for the plot. And it's so stupid. It's just legitimately like, why? It would have been... That's also the crazy part, where it's like, the story would have been more compelling if she had been dead. If she had disappeared and been dead, but, you know, Misery hadn't known until she got access to the werewolf files, where maybe they found her corpse somewhere on the side of the road or whatever, and then she could have tried to find out what happened to her, which would have been interesting, but their reunion is boring. There's no real tension there. The reveal that she's half werewolf is not interesting. It's not meaningful because we already know a half werewolf and that's just a normal kid. Like, there's nothing special about it, really. Like, Misery never really had that much of an issue with werewolves. She's not really embedded in vampire culture. She just doesn't, have contact to people generally. She doesn't really have much going on. So it's weird that her friend would think this would be a deal breaker at all. Or that she wouldn't go to Misery and be like, hey, something weird is happening. Can you help me? Because, you also are a weird person.
A weird person.
Like, it would have been more compelling if Serena had been like, hey, Misery, I need your help with something, and then disappeared before she could tell her about it.
Yeah.
Because then it would be like, oh yeah, I definitely know something is wrong, but I have no idea what. But no! It's just like the boringest version of everything.
The thing is also, if I understood this correctly, because at the end I was like not really keeping up that much anymore, because I was like, I'm confused. In the beginning, you at least think that Serena planted this clue that
she did
her.
It on purpose.
And it's like, because obviously she wrote it in the same secret language that they have.
Yeah.
She hid it in a place she thought Misery would find. But then you find out, Serena's like, how did you find me? A normal question.
Yeah.
And Misery goes, well, your message you left behind, your planner under your bed. She was like, I didn't leave that behind, though. Like, you were snooping through my stuff. That was just
my notes. That's just how I live.
and like, wait.
And then it's like, wait, nothing was on purpose? You're just stupid? Okay, cool. Again, the twist there just makes it less interesting. The book does a number of twists where it's just like, okay, this makes it less interesting than what it could have been,
I think,
Quite frankly, Serena would be way more interesting if she were just an orphan they picked up off the street and, threw at the vampire kid and were like, here, free friend, congratulations.
Please don't drain him.
Have fun. Yeah. Which would have made way more sense, where it's like, okay, this is interesting, because Serena should have more of a connections to humans, but because of the way she grew up, she probably also doesn't, which makes a more compelling character than, oh, actually, she's a half werewolf, and she also doesn't fit in anywhere, really, and that's why she and Misery are the same. Cool.
It's maybe I have a lot of thoughts about the overall plot itself. Yeah. Let's start at the beginning. Okay. It's like, the whole, we talked about the collateral thing. The collateral is, for people who did not read the book, the collateral is between humans and vampires, so that the vampires have a human collateral child and the humans have a vampire collateral child, and if one of the other, decides each fucks up, they can just...
If one side fucks up, they can just kill the kid. And both sides are like, hey, I think killing kids is not great, please don't do that. And also, they're not just random kids, they're important kids, they're children of,
governors.
The mayor or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. As interesting as the idea is, I think they didn't really address the gravity of that decision. It's handled as oh yeah, there's a collateral. Also, I met the next collateral. Poor kid. Yada yada. Okay. I feel like they're being too, I don't know, too casual about this. Am I thinking this wrong? I
also think it's very strange. From a world building perspective, it's also silly. Where it's okay, I understand why the vampires care, and listen, for a governor, their kid, okay, maybe they have attachment. Sometimes people are shitty parents, but why would the rest of the humans care that much about one child? Let's be very real. If you're super racist against vampires and hate them, this isn't stopping you. Mm-hmm. This is not a useful method of deterrence. Yeah. Generally. It's also just, the world building already is nonsensical. With the fact that humans, werewolves, and vampires all live segregated from the others. even though
Yeah.
they're all extremely alike and they're all people. They are all they all run on standard human behavioral software. They're all super social. There's no way these people aren't constantly fucking each other all the time. How did this segregation even historically occur? How would that even happen ever? Really? There is no really good reason why historically in a world where vampires, humans, and werewolves have existed in parallel since time immemorial, that they would segregate. Because you'd be just used to these people being around. And since at least werewolves and humans can have children together, there would be a bunch of those already. People, they're all social. The fact about humans is that, and generally social species, they'll fuck things that look like them all the time. They're interested. They're even if only 5% of the population are monster fucker or whatever, this would happen all the time. That's not a small percentage. A lot of people would be super up for this.
Especially
and can
because
you imagine?
It's not like they're fucking the wolf in the wolf form.
Yeah, also the crazy part is also imagine you live in pre-industrial times in a village. You know how useful a werewolf is for protection, for hunting, for everything? Same as vampires who can I don't know, keep watch in the night, and the whole thralling people things would be invaluable in any legal system. Of course you'd keep them around and build positive relationships. What do you mean? That's crazy.
The major thing where I thought, where did this go wrong, is that there's we only find this. I don't know if you only find this out because Misery is a vampire and we've got her perspective, but there is talk about how back in the day, the vampires kind of tended to, drain the humans, and that wasn't very nice or, a good thing, but they've kind of developed a situation now where they kind of get along, and I wonder what the relation between the humans and the werewolves would have been, because werewolves wouldn't eat people. That'd be kind of
strange, right?
Strange in a way. But so in what other way would they be a danger to humans?
But the crazy part's also that drinking blood makes people horny. People are into that. It feels good. Vampires don't need insane amounts of blood all the time. They don't procreate very well, so there aren't that many of them around at any time anyway. The idea that humans would find this too off-putting and try to segregate, or even if they tried, that there wouldn't be enough humans who'd be interested in staying with vampires, that the vampires would just have their own little human colony that would just let them drink whenever, even if the general, public of humanity is anti-vampire. You just have your little cult of bloodbaths who love you. Yeah. How would segregation ever happen? That makes no sense at all.
You have that situation, then you have the wolves the wares. Sorry, you have the wares who live in their own little area, and you have the river dividing the areas, and then you have the vampire kids who are being told oh, don't touch the other side of the river. If you do that,
so dumb.
You're dead. And it's
this makes it sound like there's werewolves sitting at the edge of the river the entire time, being no, don't touch our soil. We love murdering kids.
And I love that one insight from Misery where she's remembering how she asked her father, why did we build our headquarters right next to the border, just staring at the were territory, and he was well, to prove a point. And I'm what? To prove what fucking
It would
point?
be even funnier. Like, the entire time I imagined the building to be like kind of dick-shaped, you know? Like that one in London that's just like, you know, giant
gherkin.
cucumber or whatever. Yeah, and being like, you know what, this is like a sign of dominance.
It would be fun
so
if it was
stupid.
like a middle finger, you know,
Just make a
big
huge statue
monumental-
of like a vampire beheading a wolf or something. Like, if you're gonna go for it, like, why not go all the way? You
You
know?
could make a statue that pees and it pees into the river, you know, barely touching the other side.
The weird part is also that the book's like, oh yeah, this is just in the US. Actually, in Europe, there's no
In Swedish.
segregation. Where I'm just like, okay, so how is, in a world with internet, wouldn't everyone be aware that werewolf human kids exist and probably vampire human kids too? Like, if they're living intermingling, of course they're fucking. Are you? There's no way there aren't a shit ton of kids there. What are you telling me this?
If you want to talk about this big elephant in
Yeah.
the room, we touched upon this with sci-fi, where it's like if you try to science the sci-fi too hard, then there's a big chance of it
if
not
you're
working.
bad at the science, especially, and you're trying to science the fi, it does not work.
Or if the fi is just too fantastical, you know, it's
Yeah.
just don't even try to sci-fi
Yeah.
it.
Don't bother. Yeah. It's,
The gall to go up
It's
and
so
say,
funny.
I want to have like a STEM explanation for this, and you don't even
Yeah.
sit down. You, somebody who is, what is she, a postdoc or even a professor in neuropsychology, whatever, neurophysics, you have written papers, you have done research. The gall should go and say, somewhere down the way, like there were some genes that mutated, and funnily
Yeah, they
enough, at the
split, and now
same
they're
time,
different.
we got wares.
And that's like, I don't think that's how evolution works. And again, like, already these groups aren't different enough to not be fucking each other constantly. Like, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but these people are fucking all the time and having like kids and sharing their gene pool all the time.
The thing is, if we know which inner mechanisms are responsible, for example, the additional intraocular muscle that allows us to shift our eyes at high speed, if we know that kind of shit, surely at some point somebody sat down and tried to find out whether somebody is genetically compatible.
Especially like in a world that is at the scientific state that we're in, you cannot tell me they're not taking, especially vampires who are dealing with fertility issues, you cannot tell me they're not bombarding those eggs with everything they have, trying to like get them to fertilize.
Just
right?
IVF them with vampire sperm,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, or like, let's be real, scientists would be like, okay, maybe the vampire sperm isn't that effective, but humans like have a shit ton of kids. Like, maybe that's compatible, maybe that'll help.
Or
And
the
maybe
other
we
way
can
around, yeah.
use like humans as incubators, because there's a lot of those there, and we can just steal some, you know? Like,
We know the
the idea
genetic
that they're
makeup.
not doing this is crazy.
And the fact then that they're so surprised, as you said, by the hybrids, by interspecies children is so dumb. Especially with the context, I already forgot about Europe, especially with the context that European vampires and werewolves are just all chilling together and having fun. It's like, what? You have internet, you have, like, she works in IT, you obviously have the resources, science.
You'd have a bunch of European, like, institutes working on papers of like cross-species children when they occur, and being like, hey, okay, do these have any problems? Are there any like medical issues? Like, there'd be so many case studies. Everyone would know. Like, everyone would know. I don't, like, if there are already 2 that we know of who are closely related to like the same group of people in a city where segregation is taken very seriously. Do you know how many of these kids must there be in just one European city? Clearly, it's not hard.
It's not. And it's like, you cannot just say, oh, it's not really noticeable because they kind of present as humans, and it only becomes noticeable when they're like in their 20s or something.
It's like people know who they fucked. A lot of people don't like have that much frivolous sex. Like it just doesn't have. Also, like, I feel like a medical exam probably tells you this. Like, I feel like a blood test would probably reveal that. And most babies get a blood test to see if they're like healthy. Like,
I mean,
it's not,
they do say that both Serena's and Anna's like blood charts were out of any normal proportion.
Yeah.
In any normal hospital, people would say, that's not good for a newborn child. We should look into
Yeah, but also, like, there must be a bunch of, like, committed relationships where people are just dating a werewolf, and they'd be like, yeah, I've only had sex with a human, or I've only had sex with a werewolf, so this is a half werewolf kid. Like, it's not hard. Like, people know this. People are aware who they sleep with. I don't know how to tell them.
I feel like, especially if there's this notion, at least if we look at the US perspective, especially if there's this notion that there's an infertility issue, right?
Absolutely.
And you are in a committed relationship, then you would just completely forego any protection because there's no risk of getting STDs. And you think there's no risk of getting pregnant or like getting somebody pregnant. So it should happen more often.
There should be a bunch of them running around. It's like, this shouldn't be a plot twist. This is not a crazy idea.
And especially because you think, oh, maybe this is like a new development. Maybe it's a new mutation. But then we meet Serena, who's in her 20s. So obviously, this wasn't just a thing that happened a couple years ago.
And also, like, again, how would we even get this distinct set of characteristics in a population when this population is still sexually compatible with humans? Why would werewolves be this, like, distinct population? Why wouldn't there just be a gradient between, like, humans who can shift or, like, shift a little bit or, like, have some wolf character? Like, why wouldn't there just be a spectrum if they're compatible? Like, right? Like, you wouldn't get that.
It made me absolutely furious. The stemification of fantasy.
I actually do think I would have actually thought I kind of wished she had tried to explain why vampires are purple and werewolves are green from a STEM perspective. I would have loved it. Would have been so fucking funny because all my notes were like, yeah, one of them is purple and one of them is green, so together they can be the Joker because they don't live in society, you know?
I thought, did she just do that because of the stupid Aster joke?
I don't know. Maybe she was just like, no, I want to color code because werewolves are like in nature, which is green, and vampires are like in the night, which is kind of purple and like mysterious.
I feel like
she was like two colors, which are not red and which are also not yellow because that's a shitty color. Green and purple.
I think I would just automatically assume like nature makes sense, but I was like, why do they have like poisoned green blood? You know, like that's I'm like, that isn't supposed to be green. The only person that's allowed to be green is Spock. Other people,
I was like, their blood has turned to Waldmeister Brause.
yeah, that's what it feels like. What is Waldmeister in English? I have no idea.
I don't know, man. This is a distinguished multilingual podcast, okay? We don't need to translate it.
Gracias. Okay, so we're at the beginning, right? We've got it out of the way. This sucks. And then we find out...
with Misery working at a human job...
A human
and
desk
getting
job.
our first bit of stupid characterization because Misery is an elite hacker. Which is something that somehow is entirely irrelevant to the rest of the book because the werewolves also have a super good hacker already working for them. So like Misery doesn't actually contribute anything useful there either. But like she is not like other girls. She loves math and hacking and informatics, and she's so much better than everyone else at her job, and everyone's mad that she's so much better than them. And she lives in the human world with a fake passport, but has decided to keep her first name as Misery because she's stupid.
I thought that people must recognize her as the collateral. I mean, okay, whatever, she's a child, blah, blah. But if she keeps the name Misery, right? I assume if I was a human in that world, I would both know who our collateral is, and I would know who the vampire collateral is. Because it's like a political celebrity in the country. And if a Misery...
also she's purple.
If a Misery who looks like that, maybe she uses makeup. They didn't
specify. They just said she files
uses...
down her teeth, where I'm also like...
How far can you file them? Like, at some point it goes past
But also, I'm like, I feel like that would hurt. I feel like because...
Yeah, and that's why I said it.
Because the only teeth you can file down without hurting someone are usually herbivore teeth who just grind a lot of, hard things. Like, like hippos or whatever. Who have, super fast-growing teeth that are made to be sanded down by chewing through gravel and shit all the time, right? This is not typically what you can do with carnivores because the nerve endings are up to, the top of the tooth. Because, it would hurt. This would hurt like shit if these teeth are useful. This would hurt.
I thought that too.
I also feel like you could just get away with it by being like, yeah, I'm into vampires and I paid a lot for plastic surgery. What are you gonna do about it? Right? I feel like you could just say that and people would be like, okay, I didn't need to know about your kinks, but I guess.
You go.
No one's staring at your teeth that much, too. People just don't care that much. I'm sorry to tell you this, but, your standard coworker is not staring at your teeth trying to figure out if, you're a vampire. Unless your name's Misery Lord.
I mean, you live in a world where vampires exist. Obviously, that thought would cross your mind a lot more. But just in general, some people have ridiculously long canines. It's not...
Yeah, some people have pointy teeth.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like Misery is, smiling and laughing and talking all the time. So it's not, right...
It's even something we find out later in the book when Lo's like, why don't you ever, smile with an open mouth? That she has been, training herself to not...
He's like, why do you hide your mouth when you're laughing or while you're eating? It's like... Why do you think, you stupid bitch? Do you have a brain? What?
But, she has been training herself to not have them be noticeable anyways. So it's like...
why do you file them down then?
Okay.
Anyway?
But yeah. The one thing, and I marked this because I was like, I think it's going to be important. It's in the first chapter. She says about herself, I'm not prone to panic or fear or last-minute changes of heart. And I was like, ooh, how well is this gonna reflect later on in the book?
And then she sees Lo and immediately panics and has a last minute change of heart. It's really pathetic. It's like, wow, great.
It's ridiculous. She has that job and then she gets outed by...
Her dad's henchman shows up.
Yeah.
And is like, hey, your dad wants to talk to you. And Misery's like, dude, I hate my dad. I don't wanna. But then still goes.
And then the henchman does the most, cringe thing. And,
yeah.
But when people try to be really... When you play a tabletop RPG and people try desperately to be edgy, that's the thing that character would be doing. It's like, oh, and by the way, I want to roll, a deception check or an intimidation check, and I want to bare my teeth at the other person. It's like, oh, why? That gave me the ick so hard.
It was so pathetic. I was like, are you an adult?
Yeah.
Is this written for adults? Am I supposed to think this is cool? Do you think I'm stupid?
But yeah, she gets, as you said, she gets collected. She gets brought to her dad.
And her dad's like, okay, our candidate for the marriage we planned for political reasons fell through. We need a replacement. And she's like, wow, that's crazy. Good luck finding one. And he's like, yeah, it's you. It's your job now.
I hated how her dad is, from her perspective, portrayed to be like this really tough vampire guy who like takes no shit and is like conniving and mean. But he takes like 5 pages to get to the point.
The crazy part is also that like I mean, this is full of spoilers anyway. Like, her dad's evil, right? He's like cartoonishly evil even. Which I was really disappointed by, because I thought that conceptually there's something really interesting about a father who does love his kids, but is also too invested in like a lasting peace treaty to put that above that, you know? Like, that's an interesting character beat. That's like...
That gives us conflict.
That's a good family relationship. Like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's fun. And then it turns out, no, he's evil and he is totally willing to kill her himself if he thinks he gets a tiny bit of, like, political, like, you know, capital out of that. Which is stupid, because, again, it could have been so much more interesting if he did care and he wanted her to survive and be happy, but he was also like, yeah, but there's also thousands of lives that depend on us getting this marriage through, and like, I know you are level-headed and like you can deal with difficult situations, and you're literally the last person we can ask, so we really like,
you've been in the same position already.
I love you and I don't want this for you, but also I need someone to do it, and like I can't, but like you could, which would have been. It's also like, I don't know, maybe this is just my reading, but this whole book felt like, especially with the characterization of the dad, that Ali Hazelwood has like an axe to grind with utilitarianism. Because there's so much repetition of the dad being like, yeah, for the benefit of the many, you know, sometimes you have to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
It just felt like this was repeated so many times that I was like, okay, if he's evil, then we're just doing like, oh, it's bad to prioritize general welfare over like personal happiness. Which, like, I guess for a romance book is not a surprising message, but it just felt so funny to me. I was like, is Ali Hazelwood mad about utilitarianism? Did she have like an ex who was too into it and was like, no, I hate this? Like, what's going on here?
I think the what you said, like, for a romance book is understandable. I think that's ultimately the reason. It's the
probably, but it just struck me as so funny because it was said so many times about the vampires and like her dad specifically, and then it was like, oh, but he was also lying the entire time because he just wanted his own power, and like it was just like, did you know somebody who was like a proud like utilitarian and who was an asshole to you? Is this your association?
You know, maybe she's kind of bummed about the publishing business and academia, and she just needed somebody to feel that.
Yeah, no, but like her dad is like trying to soften the blow, and is like, you know, we need someone to do this, please. The crazy part is also that this scene, like at the beginning, I feel like Ali Hazelwood still made an effort to try to make Misery interesting. Because at first you think, oh, Misery has a backbone. Okay, that's something interesting to work with. But actually she doesn't. Like, over the rest of the book, she never displays any of this again. She's just cranky about her dad not loving her, is I think, what motivated her in that scene. But she's like, you have 10 minutes to get to your point, otherwise, like, I'm leaving.
The thing is also, in the beginning, I wasn't disliking Misery. I was like, okay, this is gonna be the typical quirky character,
I was
whatever.
like, okay, yeah.
But as soon as she was like, wait, who do you said I'm gonna marry? And he's like, oh, you know, Lo Moreland. She's like, oh yeah, all right, I'll do it. And you're like, ooh, what's going on?
Okay, I was like, okay, I'm intrigued.
More. And then I was like,
I assumed he was like, because at first I was like, oh, is he like an ex? Is he like, somebody she knows? I was like, wait, is she somebody who she's like hacked before and who owes her a favor or something? Like, is she, like something? Do they have personal? But no, it's stupid. They don't actually have any meaningful like previous connections or anything. It's
Yeah.
just like, yeah.
So from the prologue where she talks to Owen and then her father,
Yeah.
Owen being her brother, and then like the whole build up with the flat and everything, not the flat, the scene at the job and her
Yeah.
conversation with her father, I truly was going into the book thinking of a different Misery. And
Yeah.
then we come to the wedding, and I feel like that's when the OG Misery got thrown out of the window.
Yeah, I also feel like that's when she got hollowed out and replaced by like
Yeah.
a nothing doppelganger who just like did whatever was plot convenient at the time.
It, on the one hand, it's because we start with one of the most stupid, convoluted plot twists, because as a reader you obviously know what's
Yeah.
gonna happen, of her confusing the mate thing, of like the security going, oh yeah, the mate is the collateral, and it's like she's the mate, she's, you know, she, she
I do
doesn't
think
connect it.
it's very funny because the implications of the stories are that in this peace treaty that was supposed to be approached from both sides with like, you know, goodwill, and that both sides were supposed to win, the werewolves just straight up lied. They were like, okay, we're supposed to give an important family member to you, but Lo only has his sister and he's unwilling to part with her, so we're just gonna pretend that this woman is his mate, which is in our culture an
Yeah.
equivalent to family, so we're just giving you a random person. So, you know,
Which is
we don't
so
have to worry as
funny.
much if the treaty breaks, which is just like, what the fuck? You're just lying from the get-go? That's so fucking funny.
And
honestly, the
thing is-
vampires also should have just given them a random girl and would be like, yeah, she's a vampire, trust us, don't worry about it.
The thing is, the vampires didn't even try to like check if this is the truth.
I mean,
They-
how could they? Because the werewolves are like, yeah, mates are like a metaphysical, ephemeral thing. You can't prove it, but we love each other so much. We promise. You don't see us interact or anything.
Like, they
but
didn't even fucking try, you know, in any sort of way. But we have the wedding.
They
there's
didn't
this-
even try to thrall them to find out if it's true, which is crazy because we know they can do that. They just took them at their word, which is so fucking funny.
And then
No one
They
there
would
made
get
an
this-
effort. They were all just like, yeah, lie to us, whatever, who cares?
we get this dump of exposition while she walks the aisle of like previous alliances, marriages, about the history, and you're like, how long is that church? Like, when will she finally arrive?
How slowly
then-
is she walking? Because she's unused to high heels. She's just like puttering like extremely slowly.
It's even more funny because she's like, I've never been at a ceremony. This is a human thing. Like, we're doing something that we usually don't do. How fast am I even supposed to walk? You know, you could have all of these fun things, but instead
Yeah.
it's just her disinterest to the whole thing.
Also, there I'm like, why is she confused? She's lived in the human world for most of her life. She watches movies. She knows, she should know what this is. Like, weddings are not a rare thing in movies.
Yeah, no.
She lives with humans she should know everything about this. This is not, like, weddings are not a complex arrangement. This is not difficult to know about.
Honestly, in the beginning, or rather, I was surprised later on when at some point they were
Yeah,
like,
when she was like, oh, I didn't
she-
really grow up with vampires. I know nothing about vampires. I was like, what? Then what do you know anything about then?
And, like, you don't even know
about humans
anything.
either. What do you
Yeah.
mean?
Like, you just know nothing? Did they put you into, like, a secluded villa outside of the city for, like...
Like, straight up, did you not watch... Do you just not, process information? Like, is this the problem? Do you just, like, watch stuff and listen to people and forget? Is this what your life is like?
She was one of those homeschool girlies who was only allowed to read the Bible each day, you know?
Yeah, like, the longer the book went on, the more I was like, oh, Misery's just straight up, like, born sexy yesterday. She doesn't know anything.
Yeah, that's what
but
it felt
she's
like.
sexy, and, like, she's so clumsy. Oh, no.
It feels with the progression of the book, she just disintegrates.
She gets worse and worse with every chapter.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, wow, yeah.
The moment where I realized this could either be extremely funny or this book is gonna be the bane of my existence in a bad way is when she arrives at the altar, Lo looks at her, you know, he like grabs her, she falls, he grabs her more, he slams her on the altar, you know, the human priest is like, oh, what's going on? And then what does he say? How the fuck do you smell like this?
He does like the Edward in Twilight, like when he first smells Bella in the like science lab or whatever. He does that.
The thing is, he doesn't even does that.
She's like, oh no, I'm falling backwards daintily. I'm not used to wearing heels. Oh no, I am falling. Ooh, he caught me, but everyone thinks he is attacking me, so everyone's drawing their weapons because they're like, oh no, are we gonna kill you? It's so stupid.
The thing is, he doesn't even, like, act like he's disgusted by her smell.
No, he's just, like, bewildered, at which point I was like,
Yeah.
I would be like, what the fuck do you mean? But
It's
she's
like,
just like, I'm just not gonna engage with the situation.
She's like, oh, it probably smelled disgusting. It's like, did you ever think about asking him? Like,
Yeah, if
and
somebody
when
was
she
like, how the
asks
fuck
it-
do you smell like that? I'd be like what? The obvious follow-up question to
Yeah.
such a statement.
And when she asks him later on, she's like, she already gives him the out. She's like, oh, I smell disgusting, right? I'm sorry, I showered, I tried everything. And he can then just run with it. But yeah, the obvious reaction would be, the fuck do you mean? I put on perfume. I think I smell daintily and fine. A bit, like, irony maybe, but that comes with the job, you know?
It's so stupid. And it just like the whole thing. Also, like, she's wearing a pantsuit because this is a feminist book. She's not wearing a silly dress like those other girls. She is wearing a pantsuit.
Honestly, you talking about, oh, like this is a feminist book. The next quote I had marked is her at some point saying, what I am is an adult woman with agency and the tools to make choices. Feel free to, treat me accordingly.
And then the whole book, she doesn't make choices.
She's neither acting like an adult, nor is she making her own choices.
Or like a woman. She's not acting like any person I've ever seen.
And
I don't think she's a vampire. I think they found an alien who just didn't interact with anybody ever, and like then pawned her off to Lo, and we're like, yeah, whatever.
And as soon as Lo is like, okay, I'm gonna give you the agency, she fucks up. So it's like, truly, none of these things. And then,
but also the transcendental part is that everyone who came to this wedding, like werewolves and vampires, were like ready to slaughter each other. They were like, okay, this is like, at any moment, this is 5 seconds from an all-out war.
Yeah.
And then we find out some people brought children to this wedding. Yeah. Which is insane. And this was only there so that we could see that Lo is good with kids.
That felt so weirdly performative, because it's like, okay, you need a ceremony to wed them, whatever. But in any other constellation of this is arranged for a peace treaty, there would not be a reception and an after party.
Yeah,
like
they
people would go
make
home.
them dance. They wouldn't be like, no, you have to perform the first dance. You can only imagine that this was arranged by like humans who were like, you know what would be the funniest shit we could do to these people? Yeah, let's do it. Let's see how long we can make them do silly shit that's not necessary by pretending it's integral to a wedding.
It's like every 20 minutes they cry, conga line, and see. Just
God, that would be so
like,
funny.
They have like bets like how many vampires or werewolves would join.
Yeah.
Or like Dance the Macarena.
It's just so silly. And like again, in a different, better story, you would have had both sides bring their own marriage rituals, which are meaningful to them, and have them both happen. Mm-hmm. But Ali Hazelwood wasn't creative enough to come up with ideas for that. Yeah. So she was just like, I guess we're just doing the blandest, like, McMansion wedding we can imagine.
Because, I mean... Yeah, no, continue, please.
Because it's just, like, I don't even have, like, a strong visual impression of this wedding. There's nothing standing out about it. It's just like, yeah, it's just a rich people wedding where no one has taste and everything's just a variation of white and beige. Like, that's what I took away from this.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, even if there was like a myriad of things wrong with the Bridge Kingdom, the very first thing, the arranged marriage, the different rites that the people performed, it, in an albeit a bit forced way, immediately told you miles.
These people have different ideas. The funniest bit was still that they didn't communicate which party would be doing what, and they were just like, wait, what are you doing? That's a part of a marriage. Well, it's part for us, so just to watch us do silly shit now.
Like, why is she wearing a transparent dress? Oh, okay, it's a bit windy. Did you consider
It's important
that?
to see her tits on the wedding day. It's a tradition.
You know, even then, you immediately
At least
find out
an attempt was made. This, again,
like,
was just the blandest possible shit. And it was just like, because Ellie Hazelwood was like, oh, wouldn't it be cute if they had to dance together? Which now I feel like, yeah, this does feel like a mafia story, where it was also like, oh yeah, everyone has brought their weapons, and like, they could be shooting each other at any moment, and they're glowering at each other from across the room.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
In a mafia story, there would be an after party with all of the kids, you know, because all the aunties, they would be like glaring daggers at each other.
Yeah, because it's like traditional and very family based, but here it's not. And it's stupid that it's happening at all.
And I think then starts the biggest, but also the most confusing part of the whole book, which is like her little retreat in the house in the woods. Which is... It's a gigantic house, it's Lois' house, but basically everybody else also lives and sleeps there whenever they want to. That's the first time when we actually address the fact that light does affect vampires, so Misery can't go out during the day. It's like the first time, because previously Misery's like, oh, I like this job, they respected my weird, like, circadian rhythm. Mm-hmm. But it's the first time where it's like, oh, no, she actually, like, can't leave the house. So she is more or less a prisoner there because she can't...
Yeah, she can only go out at night.
Yeah. And it's the whole... I like an arranged marriage trope. You know, I just do.
No, it is fun. But it is a good way to bring two people together who normally wouldn't interact for a long time. Be like, yeah, you guys have to interact now because you live in the same house. Good luck.
But it felt like a prisoner trope, sort of, even. Like, it didn't feel too organic. And it felt extremely weird that they would let Lo's sister, baby sister, just interact with Misery like that.
It's also crazy to me that they gave Misery the room that has like a connecting door to Lo's, even though that used to be his little sister's room. Why would they move the little sister? Wouldn't it be even more important for her to have immediate access to Lo's room if there's a vampire in the house who you can't trust? What?
Especially not just his sister, but like the secret werewolf hybrid child that they're keeping.
I still can't believe, like, this is again like a lazy cop-out. I feel like, why isn't she Lo's kid? Like, straight up.
I thought so too.
And like, I can only assume this is because there's a lot of heterosexual women who are super insecure about raising kids that aren't their own. Like, if a man already has kids from a previous relationship or just one-night stand or whatever, because he is taking the father role for Anna. Like, he is her dad. He just also happens to not actually be literally, like, there's no reason why he shouldn't be the one who fathered her, right? Because then it would also make way more sense that he's very aware that she's a hybrid and that that's unusual and that he didn't really expect her because he didn't plan to have kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that would make sense. And this would also make sense why he's so overprotective and everything. Like, still, obviously, that also makes sense if she's his sister, because, like, people care about their baby sisters, too. But, like, again, why are we doing the runaround of being like, oh, no, she's his dead sister's kid. Don't worry about it. He definitely didn't have meaningful sex and a kid before Misery. Like, it just oozes a sort of insecurity which I don't understand. Because, like, is it really meaningfully different if that kid came from his sperm? Like, it's still his kid. You're still marrying into a family where the guy already has a kid.
Like, responsibilities and stuff.
Yeah, like, the kid's there either way. So I don't understand, quite frankly.
I would have liked it as well if she actually was his child, because then you have an interesting... Because then oh no, he has a mate somewhere else, and that mate is with the vampires, and this is also bad. You would have an actual, like, grasp, or you could actually use...
this tangible reminder that this man has a family already, like, that's meaningful to him. But no.
You don't get that. And it's...
You don't get it. And also, like, Anna's the most annoying child, and I hate her. She's the worst.
I wonder, maybe I don't interact with these kind of children, but sometimes I wonder if people who write children like this have ever interacted with a child.
Or if they remember being children. Because I'm like, when I was 6, I did not behave like this. 6 years, I think people need to remember 6 to 7-year-olds are in first grade. They are going to school. They are not babies who babble at strangers and climb them or whatever when they want attention. And they also don't struggle with counting numbers on their fingers. Yeah. Right? Like, Anna's not written like a 6-year-old who's almost 7. She's written like a 3 to 4-year-old.
Yeah.
It's the problem with her is also that she's just the catalyst for everything that happens in the plot, which is super annoying. Like, she's more of a plot device than anything else, and you already know nothing will ever happen to her because she's a kid in a story, and authors don't hurt kids. And even worse is that she's super annoying because she immediately likes Misery for no good reason. Like,
she's pretty.
She's pretty. And, like, also, this 6-year-old can't pronounce Misery because she's apparently, like, brain damaged or whatever. Like, I don't know what's wrong with Anna. Like,
I constantly had to remind myself, when they were like, oh, she's off the chart, I was like, yeah. It's just in a different... No, I was constantly having to remind myself that Anna is a 6-year-old that will turn 7 soon. Like, genuinely. Especially because the couple of kids I do know are in that age range. And I'm like, they're not that dumb.
Yeah, this really is just like, I think Allie Hazelwood doesn't interact with kids and also does not remember her own childhood.
Because the thing is, especially with the saying Misery's name, I was one of the children who would just use her own words for shit and wouldn't take no for an answer if people were like, that's not how you say it. I'd be like, well, sucks to be you. But again, I did that when I wasn't even in school yet. As soon as I went to school or like interacted with more kids on a meaningful level, you get like, you get kind of checked by the other kids. It's like, hey, you don't say that. You're stupid. And the same thing with Misery. Misery is a normal word that I think once you're 10, I think that's something that comes up in your vocabulary. But you just copy the sound.
I was about to say, these are not difficult syllables or difficult phonemes to pronounce or connect. It's very simple. It's not a long name either. So, like, it would have made more sense if she'd, like, given her a nickname, I guess. Because, like, her own name is shortened to a nickname because it's Liliana, so her nickname's fine. But the mispronunciation, I was like, this isn't a 6-year-old. This is literally just annoyance personified. This kid was written to piss me off specifically. I hate this kid so much, man.
The moment where I realized, she's gonna be a problem for me was when she was like, oh, I climbed through the window. I was like, no, this kid's gonna be a menace.
It's gonna be like, oh, isn't this quirky kid so cute? She doesn't follow, like, rules and she doesn't do what people tell her. but she's so quirky and lovable. Don't you love this kid? And I'm like, no, I hate this fucking kid. I hope this kid, like, falls off the windowsill and breaks her neck. I hope this kid dies.
Especially because, like, she's so quirky and doesn't really follow rules. That's just kid behavior. A lot of kids don't follow rules. It
was also, like, the problem was immediately apparent that, like, she immediately likes Misery and Misery immediately likes her.
Yeah.
Which is, again, where it's like, you're not allowing Misery to build any kind of organic relationship with Lo. Everything in their relationship is mediated over them both caring about Anna, which is super dumb. Because they already have, like, this mystery to solve, like, together. They don't need to also be, like, already co-parenting from, like, the get-go. It's just like, why?
I wonder whether,
if I'm reading, like, obviously you can write whatever story you want, but if you're marketing to me an arranged marriage, for political reasons, with, like, a supposedly tense vampire werewolf situation, then I want these people to grow to like each other on their own terms. I'm not interested in reading a book about a single dad whose manic pixie dream baby, like, brings the parents together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I feel like this is not a trope that is unseen in romance. You often have, like, the kids who then just say the truth or say the thing that the adults don't dare to say, or you have the meddling kids kind of trope where they're like, oh, they're perfect, let's set them up for something. So this might be because I'm just not too keen on a kid in a relationship, at least right now. Like, I wouldn't, that's not something that warms my heart and makes me giggle in that kind of way.
Yeah.
Or whether it's just, like, genuinely just badly positioned and written.
I mean, I will admit, like, I don't like kids in real life and I hate them in fiction because I've barely ever read a kid in fiction that wasn't just a plot device or, like, didn't make the scenes worse, quite frankly, by being annoying. But, again, I feel like, to an egregious degree, every positive step, especially at the beginning, between Lo and Misery in their relationship is all mediated by Anna, which sucks. Because, like, we already have the mate thing going on. Why do we also need, like, a kid to then bring them together? Why can't they, you know, build mutual trust through alliances and, like, you know, learning to trust each other by giving each other a chance? Why must it be like, oh yeah, you tried to save my baby sister, how selfless of you, maybe I can trust you. And it's like, what do we need this for? This doesn't really add anything helpful to the story. It just makes it less interesting, because now they're bonding over a fucking kid. Like, okay.
Especially because with, like, for example, with the scene where, I forgot his name, the teenager who gets radicalized. Who tries to sneak her away from the barbecue to get her kidnapped. Especially because in that instance, that's, like, even if you don't like kids, if you see a person, like, creeping off with a kid into the woods. If I see a guy
luring a 6-year-old into a white van, I'm gonna intervene. I hate kids, but, like, I'm not...
Right?
Like, obviously... I believe that kids are people and that bad things should ideally not happen to people, so I would still help them. But
so, like, why I understand that Lo then goes, oh my god, thank you so much, you saved my little sister. The fact that this fundamentally changes the perspective of, like, especially all the people around him and her, on her, I'm like, how low was the bar?
Like,
she's not a child murderer.
They're like, oh, well, all vampires must hate all werewolves. But there I am again. It's like, but aren't you all people? Like, do you not recognize that vampires are, like, people with internality that might also look at children and go, like, hey, I hate these fucking people, but, like, maybe it's bad when children get hurt. But also, why has none of these werewolves looked at the situation and been like, hey, even, like, it's good that she saved the kid and all, but you understand that this is also just, like, a politically smart move to do, right? Like, she doesn't even need to like the kid to be, like, she could just be, you know, playing 4D chess, not even 4D, just standard chess and being like, hey, I look better to those people if I don't, like, if I try to save this kid.
Yeah.
So I should probably do it to, like, expand my options in this house, because right now it's like, I want them to trust me, so I'm gonna, like, no
She's
one
not
is
smart
like,
enough for 4D chess.
I mean, she's too dumb for anything, really. I'm surprised she can hack at all, because I don't know if she can read, but, like, yeah. But, like, right, everyone's just like, wow, she saved that kid. And it's like, okay, but again, she doesn't even need to be a good person to save that kid. You guys were really strange about letting that guy abduct that kid. Like, that's a strange thing to do.
That was even worse.
Because I'm like, if you know he's a traitor, you can just intimidate him into telling you he's a fucking teenager. It can't be that hard.
Our plans.
Yeah.
They made it unnecessarily difficult. Like, they complicated that overall issue so much.
The scene is so stupid because it's set up so Misery can, like, try to intervene. But again, it's like, why would that teenager ever believe that that kid is ever left unattended? Like, straight up. Like, how dumb do you have to be where you wouldn't find it super suspicious?
They are a teenager, but the just the fact that they, at any point, as soon as they noticed, they could have approached the teen with different approaches, you know, the good cop, bad cop, that kind of stuff. And they would have probably gotten the information out of him. But no, they endangered the child.
Honestly, this also leads me into, like, the world building part where I'm just why are the loyalists a thing? It does not make sense.
Yeah.
Werewolves society is extremely stratified by, like, hereditary power. It's just like, you're born powerful or you aren't, and if you are, then you get to be an alpha and be in control of all the people below you. How would anyone be able to build any kind of base of power around opposition to somebody who, even as a teenager, everyone knew was an incredibly, like, powerful guy, and then later came back and took the alpha role by force? And, like, how would anyone ever disagree with that? Their culture is built around subservience and following the strongest guy.
Yeah, like the hierarchy.
Even if you think he's doing weird shit, the guy before him also did weird shit. He killed people all the time for no good reason because he was a paranoid asshole. How could anyone be in opposition to Lo successfully and build any kind of following? Especially around impressionable teenagers who take one look at Lo and are like, wow, he's the coolest guy ever. He's so strong and commanding and cool. Like, that doesn't work. That makes no sense. It is stupid.
Yeah.
I hate it. It's like, this kind of power jockeying would make sense for vampires to be like, okay, yeah, there is no innate feeling of somebody being specifically powerful because our politics are playing the same way human politics do, by, like, manipulation and doing favors and having, like, social influence. It's not literally measurably an inborn part of ourselves.
Yeah.
But no, like, why did we do that?
It would have made this kind of sense if they had a similarly, like, strong
if we had a different
alpha.
powerful alpha who was just like, no, I disagree with you, and I think you're wrong. But no, we didn't.
Because the structure was, if I remember correctly, you have Lo, he defeated or, like, killed the old one, and then I don't know if he also fought the other commanders or if he made them, like, cower beneath him, and then he gave them the choice, like, either you're gonna stay.
He fought a bunch of the others because they attacked him. They were like,
or he fought them. Yeah. So he rightfully won against them, and it would only make sense for them to, like, huddle up and be like, these
everyone
kind of
would
loyalists.
submit. They, even if they hated him, they would submit because it's just like,
if there was another alpha who also fought them, who also won over them, and who then goes, you know what, guys? I know you hate that Lo guy. I hate him too. Let's build, like, a loyalist group. I'm fan of the old alpha. We're gonna get everything back.
Yeah,
But
I'm
in this way-
anti-peace treaty. I think we should stay segregated. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes
But that's
sense
not-
that it makes sense that Emery is like not on
Yeah,
good
it
terms.
makes sense that
because
Emery's not like happy
mate was
about it,
killed,
but it makes no
but-
sense that she's able to challenge him indirectly at all. Because like,
Yeah,
even if she found a few other people who would also have like enough personal animosity to want to kill him or like make his life harder, they couldn't do anything like in a bigger group because everyone would be like, no, he's the alpha, these are the
Yeah.
rules. Like, yeah, that's just how it is. Like, you can dislike him, but he won fair and square. That's his job now. He's the president of werewolfness. Like, cool.
he is the werewolfness, you know.
Yeah, it, like, legitimately, like, this makes no sense with the world building she set up herself. Where it's like, but why would like, people could question it and, like, be unhappy, but who would ever dare to try and steal his baby sister? That's like straight up treason. No one would do this.
Who would ask a fucking teenager?
Yeah, who would ask an incompetent teenager to do it?
Like, teenagers, not even, like, teenagers are prone to kind of trying to find their way in, like, the society and who they are. So they're also prone to, like, flip-flopping their opinion every 10 minutes because they're unsure. They try out different things. So how could they not have known that this teenager goes to the loyalists, talks with them, and then panics and tells Lo just before the kidnapping?
It also, like, the only way it would make sense if either somebody from the human side or vampire side had, like, paid him to do it. But it doesn't make sense for werewolves to have this kind of internal, like, power struggle. That just doesn't make sense. And again, after you said, it is like some sort of mafia plot, but it's not a werewolf plot at all.
It's like, you know, it's like the guys from Italy, then the other guys are from New York, and the evil ones are from Sicily or something, you know? And it's like, you know what
I know. It's like, you know...
It's like, we have trouble at home. The Sicily people try.
Yeah, these
kidnap the
or if you
kid.
have it playing in like New York, you have like one are the Russians, one are the Italian Americans, and then you maybe have also some Japanese Americans who brought like the Yakuza over or whatever. You have you know. But like, yeah, for werewolves,
you also have the CIA
sense.
in there. Yeah, it's so stupid.
It's just dumb. It's so stupid.
And what I thought was like the stupidest thing. Like I thought, Misery, how dumb are you? Is when she tries to break, or she doesn't try, she succeeds when she breaks into Lo's office, which she doesn't really break into it. Like it's a setup, sort of in a way, and she has constantly been reminded that, you know, Lo can smell her. Right? And I was like, when I read the scene, I was like, oh, how's she gonna clean up afterwards? Because she touches everything. She doesn't. She leaves the room, and I'm like, well, obviously he's gonna smell you.
And then it's not just his office. She rifles through his underwear too.
Yeah, she looks in his bed.
She lies in his bed for a bit because she's just so quirky. Like,
I don't get why she lies in his bed. I really don't get.
I also don't
that.
get it.
Like she looks into his drawers, she sees some lube, and she's like, "Oh, he must be into some freaky shit." Like, lube? That's your.
I'm just like, Misery. You know, basic sex education tells you that you should use it always because even if somebody gets very wet, like it's still safer to use lube to prevent micro tears, right? Like you are aware of this.
What's your? Where are you going with this, Misery?
Yeah, I'm like, Misery, even, like, lube is recommended for basic masturbation activities, too, because it's just, like, healthier if there is friction. Like, you know, it's healthier to use so you don't hurt yourself.
Yeah,
I don't know what you want, Misery. Like,
and then,
do you not know how sex works? Are you stupid, Misery? I mean, she is, and she is a turbo virgin, but, like Like, you know.
Which I thought even funnier. Like, she raves on and on about how polyamorous relationships are normal with vampires. Now they all fuck like bunnies because there's no real repercussions. And she's like,
because they're trying to have more kids.
Oh, she's like, oh, but I'm a virgin. It was like, what?
She's like, because nobody would want to fuck somebody like me. Because I have such low self-esteem. Because no one loves me. And it's like, are you shitting me?
It's like,
I don't believe you. This is so unrealistic for someone like you. First off, there's no way there aren't like 50 websites where humans are like trying to find a real vampire to fuck. A. B, are you really telling me you and Serena didn't like experiment together when you were like the only people your age you knew and you had a positive relationship and you were horny teenagers? And like, 3, you're an attractive young woman.
Yeah. Like, I get it.
If you wanted to have sex, you could have. Like, it's not because no one was interested, okay? Like, come on.
I get it from the perspective of she didn't find anyone that she wanted to be intimate
That's
with.
fair, yeah, being
absolutely.
Like, oh, no, I didn't.
But her
being
saying...
Like, who would even want to fuck little old me? It's like, her like, lack of self-esteem is so weird and, like, placed weirdly. Because, like, sometimes she's like, oh, I'm the greatest hacker to ever exist. I'm so cool and smart. And then she's like, oh, no one could ever like me because I'm horrible and hateable and, like, I suck. And it's like, girl... This isn't even, like, a convincing form of self-loathing. This is, like, self-loathing written by somebody who never hated themselves ever in their life. Like...
to quickly come back to the...
who has experience with hating themselves and has spoken to many other people who've also had periods of being very proficient at hating themselves. This is not how anybody perceives that. Yeah. This is how, like, somebody who's just, like... you know, had a perfectly, like, satisfactory self-esteem their entire life is like, oh, what do people feel like when they don't like themselves?
It feels performative in a way.
It's so... everything about Misery feels performative, which is crazy. Because she's always like, I'm so real and honest.
Yeah. To quickly come back to the scene... With every chapter, in front of the chapter, you have like tiny low perspectives.
You have a tiny snippet of italicized text that is from Lowe's perspective. It's like 1 to 3 sentences typically.
Yeah, and sometimes it's super short.
And it takes out any kind of tension any reader could have experienced in wondering how he feels about her. It immediately tells her he thinks she smells amazing and he wants to fuck her so badly and he likes her so much and it hurts him that they can't fuck right now, you know.
The worst thing, which I thought was so funny, because you're wondering, he smells her in his room, right? I think the next chapter or 2 chapters after that, his POV is like, oh, he can smell her all over his room. Like, he rips out a piece of fabric from the bedding that smelled like her the most, and he keeps it
carries
in his
around
pocket. And I just imagine him, like, standing somewhere going, you know, like, really...
You know, you could just regularly have her change her, you know, pillow and pillowcases and, like, all of that, and, like, sneak stuff from the laundry. You don't need to do this shit.
Also, how weird would it be for all the other werewolves who also have a functioning nose,
can also
right?
smell her,
And he's, like, standing in the kitchen, and you smell her from out of his pocket? You're like... You were just walking around and you see him stand at the corner and, like, huffing this one piece of fabric. Yeah, he's snorting it. Like, he's like,
man.
Oh, this is so good. You're like, oh my god, that's like seeing your dog hump air, you know?
It's just kind of pathetic. Like, like, it's just, like, these snippets add nothing because, again, it's a romance book. Everyone reading this already knows these people are into each other. We are, like... I don't know if this has to be, like, your first story to ever read to even consider that Lo thinks she smells bad. Like, I feel like anyone old enough to meet, like, the criteria for reading something with explicit sex is extremely aware that, like, no, she obviously smells good to him. Obviously they're mates. Like, it's not... It's so clear. Like, it's not a surprise. So that the fact that the book strings this along until the very
Such
end
a long
almost to be like,
time.
Misery's like, oh, but I'm not his mate. Oh, he says so much meaningful stuff by staring right at me and being like, oh, you could never understand how it feels to want someone so much, and I'd take any sliver of her I can get.
You don't have
even
the
if-
hardware for it.
and it's like, Misery, come on, like,
It's like,
how
especially
dumb
when she,
are you?
especially when
And-
she bites him, she's like, his blood is the most delicious, best
Yeah.
best thing ever. Something he talks about, how there's like a physical, biological change
Yeah.
when you meet your mate. Like there's something that changes you. She then says, oh yeah, no, that has never happened in any vampire's life before. But I think, was it a couple pages before that or after that? I think
Yeah.
it was even before that. She describes how her whole everything changes when he's close, when she smells him.
She's like,
his
wow,
blood.
I've never been wet before. I met Lo, but now he just needs to be in like a 3-meter radius of me, and wow, I'm ready to go, man.
And it's like, are you fucking serious? Like,
It's so dumb.
it never before happened in my life. One thing that also, to come back, just because I saw it in my quotes, this enraged me a lot. I'm not a programmer per se. I
Yeah.
am working with computers. I am programming, but I would not call myself a programmer.
Yeah.
But the fact that Misery is bored, she's sitting there, Anna's there as well, and she's like, I might as well do some programming, do some fun little things. And she uses JavaScript to whip up a snake-like game. Just go to GitHub and download the code for, like, there's no reason why she would sit there and make it herself unless Anna was interested in the programming, which she's not. She's doing something else while Misery makes the game.
You know, it's
And
spoken like somebody who has no idea what programming or playing games is like, and is like, well, the only way to entertain yourself is to program your own game, really.
And the thing is, there's people who do that for fun, but usually they do something a little bit more challenging, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
also,
you're
like, Misery's not having fun. Like,
yeah, because you're trying to kind of, like, the people I'm around with, they're trying to constantly challenge themselves with their fun little side projects that they do. So her being the IT genius, the new Mozart of hacking, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like program a snake-like game in JavaScript. Like, come on.
but then I'm also, like, I feel like this is not necessarily, like, transferable skill. Like, I feel like dealing with loopholes in programming and whatever, and
Yeah.
designing a good game and, like, programming a game are very different, like, directions you can go in when
Of
you're, like,
course.
focusing on programming. So it's just like, what is she doing, man?
It would have been just so much more fun and kind of cutesy if she'd said, oh, and I started working on a little werewolf, I don't know, car racing game or whatever. Like something that
I
has
think
context.
it would have been funnier if she, like, developed, like, some sort of worm or whatever and, like, named it after Lo, or, like, done, like, some, like, fun
Something.
spyware shit, or developed a little virus that would just, like, show a little werewolf running around on the screen.
Yeah, like one of these
and
desktop
put
pets.
put that on, like, Lo's computer when he's not expecting it. Like, something like that.
Yeah, but also the name dropping of JavaScript, it feels
and
like
snake-like games.
it's just snake-like, not snake. TM.
It's
'cause
not
that's
snake. It's long werewolf.
it's werewolf centipede, but like it felt like these very obvious product placements. You know, it's like she got a fresh ice cold Coca-Cola. It's like what? You know,
Yeah. It really is just. I was waiting for her to name drop the peanut butter brand, honestly.
Yes. I was like, is it a specific brand?
Yeah, are you gonna give us more details? It's just also just the peanut butter thing, man. Like, it's already a weird world building choice to be like, oh yeah, vampires don't smell or taste normal food. They just
The smell
smell
was
and
weird.
taste blood, which is weird because like the components of blood that smell are also in other smells, and why wouldn't it be extremely useful for you to perceive your environment? Like, we don't just smell and taste for eating. Like, you know that, right, Allie? Like, our ability to perceive the environment is not solely geared towards noticing the right smells for eating. We
It's
get
so-
more from it than that. So a vampire should also get more from it than that. But okay.
It's especially weird because she says, oh, she's able to like judge if blood is spoiled or tastes weird. So she must have like a palate to judge
It just like this whole book feels like werewolf propaganda because like vampires suck so bad in it. Like werewolves are like, they're better, faster, stronger, cooler. Like, and vampires have a bunch of restrictions and nothing really recommending them. Like, okay, you're purple. Like, okay. And you have fangs, but like you're not supernaturally fast. You're not supernaturally like agile. You're just normal people who can't go out in the sun, and you drink blood.
Yeah.
And some of you can compel
They have
people.
the trancing thing.
Yeah, but not everyone. Just a few people can do it. Like, and that also comes with a bunch of restraint. But like, werewolves are super fast and super strong, and like they can turn into wolves and kill people super fast. And it's like, okay, werewolves are just better. Okay, cool. Like, vampires kind of suck, and werewolves are some kind of Übermensch where you're just like, okay, they're just like cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And they turn into cute puppies. Cool. Thank you.
The thing that's especially strange that it's so... I mean, it makes sense that it's like so werewolf positive in a way, right? Because Lo is the love interest. He's supposed to be a nice guy.
But also,
but with the context of having Owen, right? And having vampires that are wanting to change the overall system, it makes... It's so weird that the vampire bad is not like limited to the actual bad vampires. Like,
no, vampires just kind of suck. Like,
it's the all vampires suck.
Yeah.
All of them are shitty. All of them we shouldn't see the light of day.
They have no cool supernatural thing really going on. It's just they drink blood, but they also like werewolves just eat normal food and enjoy normal things.
They do.
And vampires can't eat food. They can't even taste it. They can't really drink others. Like, they're just kind of fucked, man. Like, and their culture is like, oh yeah, you don't hang out with people, like
you don't have friends, you
just have
really...
weird like poly orgies all the time to conceive children, to breed, because like you're dying out or whatever. Like, there's nothing going on like to be pro vampire here, to be like, oh yeah, I'd like to be one of those vampires, unless of course your dream has always been to have purple blood, which I mean valid, but also I feel like that's like a low bar to hit. Like, I don't know.
I feel for some people that's like the ideal life, you know, just fucking people, no questions asked, no social circle that they have to hang out with. But yeah, it's weird, and the whole plot with the loyalists, and then the weird Serena secret reveal being built into that. And the thing is, there's not a satisfying build up to the story. No. You find out nearly everything about the mystery at the end. So it's not even that you're sitting there and going, oh, maybe she did this, maybe she did that. Due to the plot twist, it's not a plot twist you could have, like, in a way sensibly anticipate, because there's no...
Yeah.
Like, it's like BBC's Sherlock. He's like, he knows the answer because you as a normal viewer are not able to see the clues.
Yeah, you can't predict anything because Misery knows nothing about vampire politics or vampire anything. If she knew anything that were going on, she could, you know, put information together in a sensible way and be like, hey, wait, there's something going on here. But no. She's just not informed on anything. She doesn't know anything.
It's truly.
She's literally just like
stupid.
Lo's sexy lamb, which she drags around while investigating stuff. You know,
Lo is doing all the footwork. He's like legwork. He's like investigating, sending his people out. She's coming along. She's name dropping one person, and then he does everything else. Everybody else, is like. Because obviously he has the resources, right? She didn't. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, she's the collateral, but it's also like, why the fuck would you write it so that the werewolves already have a super competent hacker working for them? Mm-hmm. The obvious choice here is that you're a super good hacker and they don't have anyone like that. And you can take that role and give them information they otherwise wouldn't be able to get.
It would have made perfect sense, especially because Lo is like such a boomer with technology.
Illiterate, like technologically illiterate.
Like nothing. He can't even open a PDF.
It's crazy that he's competent enough to call someone on a phone.
How did he even manage to book tickets back from Europe to the US?
Yeah, honestly, somebody else did that for him, probably.
He just rocked up to the airport and it was like, next flight that's open.
Yeah, he's like, I'm rich, book this for me, here's my credit card.
But yeah, you know, it's stupid. And then the reunion. No, first, before we have the reunion, we have. I hate third act breakups. In my opinion,
breakup. I love that we're just entirely ignoring when they flew to California to talk to like Emery, because it does nothing. Nothing happens.
They have the only hot scene in the whole book, which is the snogging on the plane.
But there I also was like, wait, at the beginning of the plane, right, you were like, yeah, I'll have to send you, and she's like, okay. But then you only talk about it after you've landed, which is very funny. You sat there for like 8 hours on the plane and we're like, we're not talking about this. We're only bringing this up like at the last minute.
Remember when I told you I would have to send you? She's like, yeah, where's the perfume? And he's like, nah, I have to lick your throat. But yeah, they go there. They have their first.
There's nothing. Like we meet Emery.
They have their first sex scene, I think, right?
Yeah, she drinks his blood. Like they like broke into the office to like plant some like a bug or whatever. Yeah,
database.
Tracker to track whether Emery is like doing anything. And then they're like almost getting caught, so they have to make out. But oh no. They wouldn't believe it if you just pretend to make out, so you need to really bite him to drink his blood. No, and then they get super horny about it, and all the werewolves are disgusted.
Because they excuse themselves by saying she needs to drink.
She needs to drink blood, yeah.
And then they realize, oh shit, just making out won't be enough, so
we need to pretend.
To bite him. Yeah. Yeah, there was
but nothing else happens. Like, we meet Cohen, but that's it.
He connects with that old dude, yeah.
But also, like, Cohen has, like, the funniest bit of world building, which is that he's an incel. Or I guess he's voluntarily celibate. But he doesn't have sex. It's for no good reason. It's just like, yeah, he's not allowed to fuck.
Cohen's just a celibate king, you know?
Yeah, which is really funny.
It's why he's so smart, because he doesn't... Yeah. He doesn't eject his brain once every day. So we meet, but nothing else happened. Like, it's such a waste of time. It's like, wow. Especially because at the end, it's like, yeah, Emery didn't really do anything, really. Like, it was all Misery's evil father. Yeah.
Cool.
I think it's purely there to create the setting for them
no, they're gonna catch us, you need to bite me, and then they both get really horny, so they keep doing it afterwards.
Yeah,
it makes them horny. Cool.
Which is insane to me, but like would you still be in the mood? Wouldn't you at least change bedrooms or something? Like, strange, but that
I also like I understand that, like, from a writing perspective, right? Like, if you think vampires are sexy, you think blood drinking is sexy, right?
Yeah.
However, if you're a vampire and you're hungry Do you want to be horny while eating? Is this the experience you want? Like, can you imagine
That's not
going
convenient.
like, you're like, I'm gonna make myself some tasty soup, and then you're like super horny while eating your soup? Do you want that? No. Who wants that?
I also love how when she meets his brother, or does she call him? I don't know in which conversation it was.
Yeah.
Where she was like, oh yeah, I drank from him, and that was kind of, the brother was like, I don't even want to know. I know what happens when people drink from people. That's why we don't drink from people like that anymore. Did it ever occur to you that's one of the reasons?
On purpose. But I'm also like, how does she not know this? She was collateral when she was 6, but like children pick up information. Like a 6-year-old knows things about the world that they live in. How would you not know?
If the parents tell them, or people around them tell them.
But especially, I feel like if you're giving your vampire kid to humans, I'd be like, hey, don't bite humans. It's weird. We don't do that anymore.
Especially if at some point she like gets the urge. I don't know how that usually works out in vampire lore, but I imagine that the children don't immediately get that. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a vampire expert.
I mean, in Allie Hazelwood's world, anything is possible because she didn't do any solid world building. So, like, you can... It could be anything. No one knows. It could be anything.
But yeah, they go to... I completely missed that because I got my pure frustration like out at the beginning of the video with like, do you remember the plane scene?
Yeah.
that's why. No. But yeah, we meet Emery, we meet Cohen, we meet some of the commanders, generals.
The goons, yeah.
The goons from the huddles.
Yeah. And then like... then it's revealed, Liliana is like a half werewolf. That's crazy. And like, her human dad died in a very suspicious accident. Oh, we need to investigate on the human side. So we need to be in human territory. So they meet up with Owen, Misery's cooler brother, and with the werewolf MVP. Collateral. And Misery is finally putting the pieces together when it's obvious that Lo doesn't give a shit. And Lo's just like, dude, I don't even know what she does. Like, I don't know her hobbies. She just works for me. And Misery's like, but you know what I like? Which means we must be mates. And it's like, girl. And then they fuck in, like, her flat in her bedroom.
Yeah. Because they also...
I suppose is supposed to be romantic.
They make the connection that Serena was the last person that was, like, researching and talking.
Yeah. So
they go to the flat, they look for clues, and then while they are there, they have some emotional sex, I would say. Like, it's very... Like, at least from her perspective.
Yeah.
It's not just, he's so hot, but she's, like, constantly like, oh my god... I love him so much, and he doesn't seem to be loving... Like, she gets to the conclusion, to the final actual conclusion while they're having sex.
Yeah.
That, that must be happening. And then they have this infuriating discussion.
And then for no good reason, Lo's like, no, actually, we aren't mates. I don't know what you're talking about. This is, you're delusional. It's gaslight time. I don't know what you're talking about. We are not mates. I am leaving. This other guy can drive you home. Goodbye.
I have to see if this was... Okay, I think this was after the... Yeah, this was after the big conflict. There was a quote from Lo that I thought was infuriating when it was about... It's like the conclusion to the scene we just talked about.
Yeah.
Where he says, my feelings, my wishes, my desires, they are mine, Misery, not yours to deal with. And then she goes, what the hell does that even mean? Of course they are. And like, I was like, exactly. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's like, dude...
What?
She already knows. Like, you can't take it back anymore. Like, it's so obvious that, like...
like, yeah, sure, at a
What
certain...
do you mean? Like,
at a
yes, my
certain-
feelings are mine to deal with. Okay, yeah, but like she obviously wants to deal with them. So
That's
what's
the
your
thing.
point, man?
It's
What is
like,
it?
yeah, sure, like, you can deal with them if you want to, but you are aware that these are the feelings about the person who is very openly, like, saying and agreeing to all the consequences and
Also,
what comes
this
with
is
it.
made extra funny by the fact that Lo is incredibly aware that she's super insecure and like
Yeah.
needs somebody like in her life who cares about her, especially after her friend has disappeared. He's just like, I don't want her to know we're mates though, so I'm just gonna straight up like gaslight her about it. Don't worry. This is for her own
Yeah.
good somehow.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest third act breakup. Like, I understand it's part of romance books or whatever. Like, it needs to be in there, I guess, because it's part of the basic plot structure or whatever. But we could have just had, like, Lo get a phone call where it's like, hey, you're needed here. And he's like, okay, yeah, this guy's gonna drive you home. We'll talk about it later. He didn't even need to deny it. He can just be like, we have to talk about this at another time because
Yeah.
something, like, with my sister came up or whatever. So, like...
I feel like
we'll talk about it like at home,
yeah.
you know, like I have to go right now, but we'll get to it. Like they didn't need this pointless fight. This is so stupid.
A third act breakup, I'd say, is necessary in romance. I feel like a third act conflict in the relationship usually is something, but the specific break, I hate the third act breakup trope
Yeah,
because it feels so shallow when you build up a romance and like a genuine
it's
connection
also,
over
like,
the story.
the thing is also that I totally understand that you need this kind of conflict in like a standard contemporary romance where they're like normal people. But if you already have like a political drama going on, do they really need to fight? She's getting abducted. Like, they're apart anyway. There is conflict happening to her. It's not like nothing is happening in the story.
Yeah.
Because the romance is all there. There is other stuff happening. Like, this just makes her look super stupid when she, A, believes him, and then B, in the scene where like, her dad reveals how very evil he's been the entire time, she looks extra stupid where she's like, Lo, tell them we're not mates. And everyone's like, dude... Like, we can tell. Like, it's obvious.
It was one of the few scenes where I genuinely felt bad for Misery. Because she's there, like, naked, you know, panties around her knees. She has his semen on her back or wherever he shot it, right? She's looking him in the eyes because she's in this moment of, oh, this was so nice. I had orgasm like 5 times.
She's like, wow,
this is beautiful.
We're in love. It's perfect.
She tells him, and he just puts his dick away, says, no, I don't love you, and walks out.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm like, I'm supposed to be rooting for this guy. Like, at least have the decency to, like, I don't know, help her clean up or anything.
The funniest bit is that already previously in the book, we had a scene where he was like, no one's ever, like, cared for you properly, you know? Like, we know he knows she has, like, serious abandonment issues and has a fucked up relationship to almost everyone in her life, and he's like, you know what she needs? Me to make it worse. and
especially
we're supposed to like him still, and I'm like, I don't like him, though. He sucks.
Like, especially since, yeah, as you said, she's such a, like, desperate for love, desperate for somebody who will, like, just be nice to her. And then he leaves her standing naked and dirty in her own
she feels
apartment.
so terrible afterwards, but I'm like, okay, this is, like, the first time I'm like, you get to be self-indulgently whiny, Misery. Like, at this point, it's kind of deserved.
I was like, holy fuck, he's not doing this well. It's not even dried up. Like...
I was like, you know what you should do, Misery and Revenge? You should, like, try to kill yourself. Then he'll feel bad, too.
Yeah, it's just... you know,
I was like, you know what, Misery? You also need to do some toxic shit right now to make him feel bad. But then she gets abducted, so she doesn't even have to... You know, this was outsourced. Her dad, like, was like, my senses are tingling. This is a perfect time to help my daughter manipulate her husband to feeling bad.
So fucking stupid. And then the whole... Oh my god, the whole...
The climactic fight scene.
It was like, okay, so I think we already said this at some point in the video, right? Serena is also a vamp. Yeah, we said that. She's
Serena
also
is a half
hybrid,
werewolf, yeah.
a half hybrid werewolf person. And there's this really, and the thing is, I realized that at least in this book it makes sense. In her second book, Ellie Hazelwood has a situation where, just saying this is so dumb, where there's scientists at NASA, like some of the experiments are not working out, and at the end of the book the female main character, she goes to investigate, and like one of the other senior scientists, right, one of the PIs, he's like standing there with a gun, and he's like, if you just hadn't checked the lab this late, you know, I really liked you, quirky, smart, but unfortunately you're here. Takes the gun and tries to shoot her, and then the other guy, like the love interest, saves her.
Really.
And I felt like, okay, at least this makes sense in this book now, and Bride, because it's like a ridiculous fantasy book. But also that none of the other people caught up to it, because it's not like a, you know, like a little eye thing where she's like, Lo, just prepare, you know, something's gonna happen in a second. She literally says, like, oh, well, sometimes you don't know if somebody else is having special powers too. She looks at her friend. She looks at Lo. Like, she's like waggling her eyebrows. Everybody else is just confused.
Yeah, everyone else has been tricked to think that Misery has never had a singular thought that means anything, and is like, well, she's just crazy.
There she goes again. She's speaking in riddles.
Yeah, they're like, again. She let a werewolf fuck her. She's not all, you know, all there up there. But it's so the villain reveal with the dad is so stupid, because again, it's like, it's not interesting if he's just evil. It's not even
a reveal.
Yeah, it's just like, wow, yeah, he was evil the entire time. That's crazy. Wow. It would have been more shocking to be like, yeah, he actually cared about his daughter and was like, yeah, you know what? I want her out of there because I don't trust you werewolves because you suck. Like,
it's not. At first, I was like, oh, is Owen evil bad guy? Like, maybe. But
then it's like, the father Owen's being a good guy, and he saves her because he's the best brother ever. I mean, in fairness, he does owe her because, like, you know, his name's Owen and her name is Misery. They're twins. I feel like he already won, so he owes her a little bit, you know, because, like...
No, I thought before there's this scene with Owen walking Lo into the room, I was like, when she was like, I'm at the vampire tower, surely my father is the evil guy. I was like, well, wouldn't it be interesting if Owen was the evil guy now? Yeah. And maybe the other werewolf, the other collateral was behind it as well. Yeah. Because they had more chemistry with each other in the short scene in which we see, like... Yeah, them talking to each other. Lo and Misery had their whole book, but no, it's evil vampire just man.
The dad, fathers are evil. You know how it goes.
Daddy issues.
It really is just like, wow, it's the most boring way we could have done this.
It's such a bland conclusion. Yeah, it's like, oh, pat, hey, perfect. The one thing I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, is in the beginning we find out that the human governor is changing, and that the new governor has not yet agreed to a meeting with the vampire dude with her father. And then at the end of the book we find out that probably the reason is because she's quite aware of how well he can enthrall people. And that's why she didn't want to meet with him, not even for, like, an online thing.
But there I'm like, first of all, does it even work online? But then I'm like, if you have, like, witnesses, then he can't do it without, like...
We don't know how strong he is. What if he can enthrall just all of them?
No, but I think it was implied that you can't that you need to concentrate on a person to do it. But also, like, even if he could, like, if there's, like, 20 people and there's a live stream of it going somewhere else, then, like, what would you do? Like, obviously, then, you know, the information would be out there that you're, you know, trying to break your deals by just making people agree with you, and then no one would ever make deals with you again. It's so stupid. It's like...
you would put your Zoom or whatever you have on the mode where you can see everybody, and you just try and hope that they're all looking at your camera at that moment.
Honestly, you just invite some blind witnesses, and then they'll be like, yeah.
I mean, it's not too uncommon for like politicians to meet in like very small groups.
Yeah, true. But like, if you don't trust him, you can be like,
Yeah.
we can have this conversation in public with a shit ton of people around, or we don't have it at all. And if you're interested in keeping the collateral thing going, we can do that. But I'm not meeting with you in person.
But I mean, she was dead set on not even keeping the collateral up. That was like her one thing why people even voted for her. She's like,
where I'm also like, I mean, yeah, it's pretty useless. It's pretty stupid.
It's also all the humans were behind her. They were like, you don't want to sacrifice your own child. We totally get that. Like,
yeah, where I'm like, I don't know if I were a human, I'd agree with that. Like, if you live in a society where it feels like this is a meaningful part in keeping like your people safe from like vampire attacks, I'd be like, okay, but like if you want political power, then you have to sacrifice your child. I feel like that's like, you know, you have to be willing to make a trade there. I don't know. I don't think so many people would be this behind her. I think a lot of people would be like, no, that's the price you pay for political power. You can't just like sacrifice everyone else's safety for your own kid.
I get that. I mean, we talked about the hate for utilitarianism earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just feel like if I was in that world, I'd be like, there is one tiny kid, the life of one tiny kid keeping the people who are very good at eating me from eating me.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a very thin...
I think there would be a lot of people who would be like, yeah, I mean, the point is that they're not going to kill the kid, they're just keeping the kid. If we don't, like, right, you'd be like, well, probably nothing's going to happen to that kid, so yeah, just send your kid over, like, I don't give a shit. But it also implies that you can only get into office if you have, like, kid relatives that can be boarded, which is very funny. Where it's like, yeah, you can't participate in politics if you don't have kids, or you don't have relatives with small kids who agree to give their kid away. Which is very funny. New vector of discrimination discovered. It's very
you
very
need to be able, like, infertility not allowed. Imagine you don't have kids, but like your sister or brother have kids. So you're like, hey, nephew,
hey, I need your kid for my career.
Would you be up and willing? Like,
yeah, it's. I mean, the collateral system is stupid. It's just there to give, like, Misery a sad backstory, which isn't even really used for characterization, which makes it more offensive. Like, it is stupid and it doesn't even do anything. Yeah. Like, that's the real problem here.
It's definitely, it's just stupid. And then I remember I was writing you. I was like, I'm done with like the big conflict. There's only
the
way much left of the book, and it's gonna be the sex scene, and I'm scared. And this like the whole book is riddled with the most ridiculous quotes and like wording and whatever, but that last sex scene, really bad, really bad. Like, I think I like worse sex. Not worse sex. His eyes hold mine for a long beat.
Mating.
Mate sex.
I'm like, I think that's what in Australia they call like friends with benefits. I think. But it's so, there's so much. I also like the way he's like, in the one first sex scene where he's dancing around, like, saying that nodding exists, where he's, like, trying to play coy with it, and it's like, just say what happens. Oh my god, are you embarrassed? Is this not basic biological functions to you? Just say what happens, and not be like, oh no, we might not be ... compatible. And she'll be like, wait, like, is your dick too big to fit? Like, what's the issue here?
The funniest thing is that when I also marked that one, is that at some point, she talks about the differences between vampires and weres and about like the weird misconceptions, and then she says, come on, we'd eat popcorn and laugh at the untalented actors in purple contacts and fake teeth engaging in acts that proudly showcase their ignorance of vampire anatomy. Where to? I'm no expert, but I'm fairly sure their dicks wouldn't get stuck in an orifice like that. So she's aware, you know?
It's also like implying she knows what vampire sex is like, even though she had probably no sex ed and knows nothing about vampires. So
that's true.
I think she's just uninformed. I think that porn might be better than her information.
But it gave me like one of the biggest icks in their sex scene, but it was one of the previous ones where he like pulled out because the knot. When he makes her explain what a knot is for, and he's like, "Tell me what it's called," or something like that. She's like, "It's a knot," and I was like, "Please leave it at that. We don't need to know more." But it gives me the biggest
think it's
ick.
very funny that they were like, "Oh, it only happens with the maids. It doesn't happen with normal wolves." And I was like, if you're gonna commit to the wolf thing, I feel like you can just be like, "Yeah, that's just what happens." Right?
Like, that's one of the things when you see like these poor videos of dogs who are just fucking because they were horny, and then they're standing ass to
they're
ass,
stuck together,
and just looking at their humans, going, "Why?" Like, there's.
Yeah, they're like, "I don't want to do this anymore. Can I leave?" And it's like, your fault, baby.
You gotta do the devil's
yourself.
Devil's tango for at least 10 more minutes. I'm sorry, buddy.
It was like, unfortunately, you sowed and now it's time for reaping, man. Like, that's how it goes. The consequences of your own actions.
It's also once they're done with their final sex scene and they wake up in the morning and she asks him, she's like, "Oh, by the way, when did it disappear?" And he's like, "Oh, roughly 30 minutes later." Was he timing it? Was he just sitting there and going, "Oh yeah, finally my dick's not hard again?" Like,
but also, I'm just like, the reunion is also so stupid. 'Cause like, they don't leave on like the best terms after the big confrontations. He doesn't really talk to her before he leaves back to weird territory. So their real last conversation really was him being like, "No, I don't want you. Like, I don't love you. Whatever."
Yeah.
And then like, obviously we had the confrontation where the reveal was that no, actually they are mates. But like, if I were her, I'd be like, no, if he wants a relationship, he should come groveling.
Yeah.
Like, no shade, but if you're like, "No, I don't love you like that," I'd be like, okay.
Like, even if I knew at a deeper level that he was bullshitting me and he was just talking because...
He still needs to apologize, because that was a huge dick move.
Like, you treated me like a piece of shit.
Yeah, you were incredibly cruel for no good reason. And I feel like you should apologize, but no, she's just like, "Oh no, I'm gonna go back because like I live there now." And then she's like, "Oh, he took all the stuff out of my room. Ooh, he doesn't love me." And then he comes in and is like, "Oh no, it's because I'm installing anti-sunlight windows, so you can sleep in a real bed." It's like, wow, so romantic. And then they fuck.
It's like the most constipated
I don't even think... Did he apologize?
Reaction.
I don't remember, but I don't feel like he did. I feel like...
I don't know.
I
don't remember.
I feel like it was supposed to be like, "Oh yeah." No, obviously he was just lying to protect her, but it was like, no, not really. He was just cruel. Like, he could have just been like, "Yes, we are mates, but please don't advertise this. Like, people can't know because that like puts you at risk and I don't want that for you." And that would have been fine. But he had to be like cruel for no good reason.
I think it's especially weird because like usually you would have a more sensible conversation about it, right?
Because they're both adults.
We don't have any... Like, from her we know that she feels like expendable. Like, she feels like people can just switch her out. Like, nobody really cares about her. From him, we don't really know any big relationship backgrounds, whether he is, like, traumatized in that regard. anywhere. So for her, I feel like she follows the normal kind of way that like a allosexual person would fall in love with someone. You know, they're having sex before they're like really like committing to anything verbally in terms of, oh, I love you, I like you. So by all means, with her getting all lovey-dovey, he would look at her and go, this is somebody who genuinely loves me. Actually, by chance, this has happened. So I can be honest with her and tell her, hey, you know, this is the case.
Especially because we've already heard all of his speeches about how important a mate is to a werewolf and, like, how much she means to him and how much he needs her in his life, even if just a tiny smithereen of her. And it's like, wouldn't you want her to be in love with? Like, I don't get why you're so weird about. Like, it is obviously not because any character would decide that. It's just because we need a third act breakup.
Yeah.
But it's so dumb.
Because while, vampires do have the polyamory going on, we know from Misery that, or not...
She's not into that. She's not doing it. She's not a vampire, culturally speaking.
Just by her overall behavior towards Lo, she's not fucking with him because it's just a fun little pastime project.
And, like, he can tell. Like, he knows that she's not hard to read.
Like, he can obviously see that she's genuinely interested and in love with him.
She has literally never mentioned anyone else or tried to fuck anyone else or even looked interested in anyone else.
Yeah.
Like, Lo, what's your deal, man?
And he looks at her and goes, nah, she could never love me. I'm not gonna tell her I'm her mate. I'm gonna be a fucking asshole.
Especially because we also know from Owen that, like, drinking blood from the same person over and over creates, like, some weird codependent bond, too. So I'm like, dude... Like,
well, I guess Lo doesn't know that.
No, but it's also like it's literally set up so they can like both bond in like their own way, which is like okay. So, but that breakup's so bad.
The breakup is bad. The reunion is bad. Like, and at the end we have this as Misery. We have this hollow shell of a character who has been thrown around over the whole book, you know, just being a different shade of misery.
Yeah, like, she's just in scenes. Has she got any motivation or, like, consistent internality? I don't know. Not really.
And if you were to compare, like, end of book Misery with first, like, 3-chapter Misery before the wedding.
Yeah, it's like, oh, they made, like, a terrible clone that sucks and put that thing.
It's totally not comparable, which is crazy because usually you can't really judge a character after the first couple of chapters. Yeah. But I'm kind of sad that we didn't get...
Yeah, it's like, wow, where is your backbone, Misery?
Yeah, I mean, you just were, like, pummeling verbally that one sexist guy at your office, you know?
Yeah.
Outsmarting him quirkily.
Yeah, the whole book, I was just like, if I had kept notes, I would have been, wow, another quirked up white woman moment. Because she's just so quirky and so
many.
Honestly, the most offensive part is that, like, very last scene where Cohen comes in and is like, oh, wow, he and Serena are mates. Because, of course, no one can ever be single, ever.
It's this SJ
and it's like,
Moss.
oh, are you setting up a sequel where they get together? But I'm like, there wouldn't even be any conflict, because what would be the he's not that old. He's like maybe 10 years older than that. Like, there's not a significant age difference. There aren't really vampire werewolf problems here because she's a werewolf and he's also a werewolf. Like, even her being just half werewolf doesn't matter because she can shift, so she can do all the werewolf behaviors anyway. Like, what would even be the point? Like, why did we do this?
I saw somebody on Goodreads that was like, oh my god, I need a Serena Cohen book stat. Like, I didn't care much for Misery Low, but Serena and Cohen, oh my god. And I thought,
I'm just like, if you get a Serena and Cohen book, they're gonna be the same. They're gonna both be nothing.
And like, additionally, like, well, again, what you said, what is it about? Serena getting, like, coming to terms with the werewolf hybrid thing, or Like,
because it's also just like that mating bonds aren't interesting in and of themselves, right?
yeah.
Because, like, usually you employ something like this as, like, a narrative shorthand or a narrative, like, shortcut to keeping people together who normally wouldn't stay together. You have people be, like, unwillingly attracted and codependent when they, for different reasons, wouldn't usually choose this.
Yeah.
Which is fine. That's what it's for. That's okay. Like, that's the soulmate idea. Like, a lot of soulmate stuff is, like, about people getting them together when usually they wouldn't be, right? Either because they wouldn't meet or because they wouldn't spend much time together or whatever. But, like, Serena and Cohen already would have spent time together on account of her learning to be a werewolf and him, like, helping Lo with stuff and coming to his house regularly. So what would be the point? Like, what?
I don't know.
What would it add? Nothing.
It feels like such a weird, like, ooh, cliffhanger or not, or maybe we don't know.
Yeah, I feel like this was Ellie Hazelwood being like, hey, if Bright does well enough, I guess I'll write a sequel about these two. Which is like, who wants this? I mean, it's better than a sequel about, I don't know, Anna or whatever as an adult, because, like, she sucks. I don't want to see her ever again in my life. I hate this kid. But, like, right? What?
Yeah. It's...
And then you know that in that sequel we'd have, like, Misery and Lo, like, cameos. Or perhaps we'd even get implication that maybe there's a baby on the way. Because, like,
yeah,
it's a heterosexual romance book. We can't not have babies, right?
I also fucking hated that moment when... Is it the first time they have, like, penetrative sex or something? And she's like, where's the condom?
And he's like, we don't need it.
The fuck you mean the condom? We don't need one. And she's like, genuinely, it's her first time. And she's like, genuinely, like, I just heard about a werewolf-human hybrid. Who tells me that you're not gonna knock me up? And he's just so dismissive of it.
But I'm also like, dude, neither of you got tested for STDs. You don't know what kind of STDs could jump from a werewolf to a vampire or whatever, just because it hasn't happened before.
Don't they have, like, this stupid excuse where they're like, well, we both have, like, super immunity, so the illnesses wouldn't
but
even...
you don't know. Maybe you react badly to his semen. You don't know.
Yeah. But it's like there is
maybe you have an immune response to it inside you. Like, you don't know.
There's an actual, like, explanation as to why that would be okay, and it's just about the pregnancy, which I just thought, don't tell me
just use a
have
condom,
not,
man. It's not that hard.
There must be notting condoms.
But I'm also like,
werewolves, right?
even if there aren't, just, the condom doesn't need to fit over the knot. You can just pull out then after, like, when the knot starts forming. It's not hard. Like, it's not difficult, right?
Like, I mean, you probably know where the knot starts, right? So you just...
I can't, like, it's just very strange. It's just like...
The fact that
you could have them both be dismissive of a condom and be like, do you want a condom? Like, if you want to be like, hey, it's important to bring it up at all, because, like, it's helpful to, destigmatize, like, talking about sex and, like, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Which, fair enough. You could have been like, she's going like, do you want to use a condom? And he'd be like, I mean, what for? And she'd be like, well, maybe there could be vampire werewolf hybrids. And he'd be like, I don't think that. And she'd be like, yeah, okay, fair enough. I also don't think that's likely. We can do it without. And that would have been fine, too. But the way it's done is just, like, he doesn't so respect her.
Yeah.
He's just so desperate to do it raw, where I'm just like, dude, just use a condom, man.
And the thing, like so many things he does sometimes go against this, I love my mate, I wouldn't want my mate to be hurt or anything.
Yeah, he's like, it's about her, not about what I want. And I'm like, is it though, Lo? Is it? I don't think so. I don't believe you.
I'm sorry, my man, but that's toxic masculinity right there. This is, like, weird.
Yeah, it's, like, weirdly coercive. It's like, just put on a condom, man. Like, are you scared of rubber? What's the deal?
He has a latex allergy.
But then I'm also like, okay, but if you disagree on that, just don't have sex. Like, sorry. Like, but don't have penetrative sex. I can't imagine that being this hard. Like, sorry,
Yeah. I mean, in the end, he's anyway, oh, I'm gonna pull out anyways. It's like,
I just feel like if you're going to bring it up, like if you're gonna try to play like, oh yeah, I'm good about sex and like people communicating about sex, then like don't do this, because this just feels like this is too realistic in the sense of like your horny boyfriend refusing to put on a condom and trying to pressure you into having bare sex even though you said you didn't want to, and like her giving in because she's just okay, like I guess if the alternative is no sex, like it's not good.
it doesn't leave you with like, it takes you out of the scene of the
Yeah, it's
supposedly,
not fun and
oh my
romantic.
god, this
It's
is
just
their
like,
first thing.
yeah, it's like, wow, this lowers my opinion of low even more. Like, it was already low because he's attracted to misery, which suggests something wrong with him, but like,
The one good meme that came out of this book was people posting skits to the song I Am in Misery. You know, that was the only like good memeage that we got, because everything else just nothingness. Not I'm not I'm again disappointed by a Ellie Hazelwood book, and I'm wondering at which point I'm just not gonna even try to read them anymore. I mean, I'm already with her next book. I was already like, I'm not interested in reading that because it sounds boring AF.
I mean, you can just wait until there's one with good reviews and get it from the library or something.
Yeah, of course. But it's like the problem is that a lot of them have good reviews, right? Because it's like the core readership that reads them,
Yeah, that's
likes them.
But also, I'm
because
not
there's a place for these books.
Yeah, no. I think the thing is that like romance readers just don't have high expectations. Like this sounds a little mean, but I don't mean it like that, because I feel like for a lot of people standard romance does fill the niche that for other people fan fiction does, which often is a lot more about the premise and getting from one hot scene to the next, and like recognizable character archetypes much more than it is about the actual story and the actual writing of it. So romance doesn't actually need to be that good to be that popular, and also romance readers read a lot of books. Like the average romance reader reads much more than like the average, I don't know, fantasy reader or whatever. And like, yeah, they'll just read whatever comes out and is passable. And I guess this is like passable enough. Like, I suppose if like something had like a really good premise and I really cared about the characters, I might read fanfic of this quality and be like, okay, yeah, fair enough. But I don't get this for this, because like the characters are so nothing. They're not even their archetypes, because misery is not. The fucked up thing is that like you can't have a compelling main character who's like genuinely depressed and thinks extremely little of themselves and isn't super active in the plot. You can write this in a compelling way. You can have interesting scenes and interesting introspection and see them like developing more of a sense of self and have them be in conflict with people around them who care about them, but like don't have the words to communicate this effectively to somebody who just wouldn't believe them anyway. Like, this can be an interesting storyline, but that's not what misery is like. So
Yeah.
I actually do kind of hate every time it's like it's the book is trying to get me to believe that she's like depressed and struggles with motivation and stuff, because it feels like the most sanitized depression like representation I've seen. It's like it's just like, oh no, it's just, you know, you're kind of sad and you don't know what to do with your life and like you don't want to get up, and it's like, oh boy, this is the kind of shit where people are like, oh no, I understand what depression is like, and then they meet a real depressed person and they're like, oh, you're a lot more unpleasant than I thought depressed people were supposed to be. And it's like,
it felt less like depression like representation and more like this, what I think is a very relatable feeling, especially for people in their 20s, is this aimlessness and this lack of drive, because you don't really even know where you want to go. So, and that is paired with extremely normal, unfortunately, in this day and age, which is just loneliness and like lack of connections due to outside factors.
Yeah, but for that, I'm like, her story's too like crazy to be like relatable. Like she shouldn't be relatable. Like, right? Like she shouldn't feel like something that you could experience because her childhood is so fucked. That's crazy. like it would be so traumatizing and like insane for a child to experience and like be extremely aware that they could die any moment, and especially that they could be killed by the people who are entrusted with their safekeeping every moment. Like the guy who makes your lunch could like give you a headshot the moment something goes, and you could never know beforehand. That's like insane.
Even the kid friend that they give you, you cannot be sure that the kid has not been indoctrinated to at some point.
Yeah, and you don't have like any kind of interaction with other kids your age. Like you know nobody except that one kid they picked for you and the people who are willing to kill you. Like even if they're nice to you and even if they care about you, they will kill you. Like this would mess you up so badly. The fact that she's so normal is off-putting. Like, it's like, you had an interesting idea and you didn't do anything with it.
Like, I mean, I know some people who went through intense shit during their formative teenage child years and they still turned out as pretty great, like, solid, stable people. But they usually did the legwork to...
Yeah. Because Misery didn't do anything, right? Like, she didn't go to therapy or what. And I mean, how would you even do that? Like, what would you even do? And like, again, this is like... How do you
even start?
This is such a crazy situation. There's no way Misery could ever be well-adjusted to anything.
Yeah.
I also think it's very funny that she's like, oh yeah, after being the collateral... the vampire set me up with enough money for life, but I spent all of it on fake like ID, and I'm like, fake ID is not that expensive. Like, you can get this for like a few 10,000 or something, and that's money that lasts you like, I don't know, a year of like nice living or whatever. Like, it's not, fake ID is not that crazy expensive. Like, I don't know what you did with your money, Misery. Where's your money?
I don't know the economics. I don't know how to pronounce the word. I don't know the economy of the world that was built there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you say she tries to scrounge by living in a shared flat with Serena.
Like, wouldn't the vampires just give you a card that you can continuously use and just keep restocking your account with an allowance of, I don't know, like 5,000 a month or something, because they don't care about money because like they're...
And she's a hacker, so she should be just well able to,
but
like,
also
take
she's
some...
the kid of the most influential vampire on the council, too. Like, how does she not have money? That's insane.
I mean, you could say, oh, she doesn't have, like, you know, like shadow money, you know, because she wouldn't want the vampires to be able to, like, see what she, like, spends it for, but... As I was just about to say, she's a hacker. She can take that money through multiple different accounts, make it disappear, and then buy her shit from there. And even then, her father is quite aware that she has fake IDs.
Also, her father knows exactly where she is. It's also like, why would she hide? Like, her father's obviously not invested in getting her to live. Like, nobody stopped her from leaving. They were like, I guess you're not living here anymore. Okay. Like, it's... Why would you?
I think the hiding was more because of, like, maybe previous jobs where people found out she was a vampire, and the fact that she doesn't want to be recognized as the collateral.
Yeah, but that's, like, hiding from the humans. It's dumb to keep your
first
name.
So
she could still get her father's money into, like... It's just strange. It's such a strange bit where I was like, oh, we're supposed to find her relatable because she lives, like, in a shared flat and doesn't have that much money, even though she comes from insane wealth.
And she gets furniture from, like, antique stores and stuff.
Yeah, and it's like, it just makes the vampires sound incredibly cruel and evil to not, like, have enough money for her to live, like, extremely comfortably wherever she wants. And I'm also like, if you don't want this trouble, just to move to the UK where things are apparently way better. Like, you don't even need to learn a new language.
He went to Zurich, right? Like to Switzerland, I think.
I mean, Lo studied in like Europe, right? Somewhere.
Yeah. He studied. I think he was sent away, right? Because of
because he was
his
too alpha.
alpha-ness.
Yeah.
Wait, I think
he was an
architect.
architect. He's an architect, and he studied in like Switzerland, right?
He was forced to leave his home without knowing. When he came of age, he still wasn't allowed to come back, so he moved to Europe, went to school, and started a career. Yeah. Also, the thing with the architect, right? He's so good at drawing houses and environments, and that's really cool. And then he's also a portrait artist, and he's able to capture the perfect likeness
and
of
like,
misery.
Oh, and he designed the house they live in, where I'm like, did you just build this house like 2 years ago? You didn't come back that long ago.
He's
what do
just
you
fast.
Mean?
He
Who
designed
built this quickly?
He designed this whole... I mean, maybe, the vampires are very strong. So he's like, you all, for half a year straight, you gotta build my house. And it's an American house, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's not like usually they have like the wooden core for houses. So maybe it's not like that didn't take...
He was like, I'm getting a cheap house, don't worry about it.
No, I'm not saying American houses are cheap.
I mean, a lot of them are.
I'm just saying that a lot of them aren't built as solid,
Yeah, but regardless of it, it's just very funny.
Yeah,
because like
it is.
He didn't even finish his studies, I think, and they just let him design the house, and because I feel like he came back like less than a year ago. It's just so funny that they like hustled to get this house built so quickly. And it was like they had this house long enough for the kid to be like, no, I have a specific room. I'm used to sleeping. It's just very funny, man.
I could also imagine that he like went back and then he was preparing to kind of confront him as an alpha, and then he did that.
No, wasn't it like his sister was hurt and then died? Like he was called back when his sister got injured. And then his sister died from it. It was very quickly. He did not prepare for long. The house thing's just very funny. It's clearly unconnected to any of the plot. Ellie Hazelwood was just like, oh, he's an architect and he designed this house.
I think, they can build a house fast if they want to.
It's just this tidbit that's really funny to me. I just like imagining how the logistics went.
Just a small addition of him going, I always wanted to have a big house to host my family and have everybody close by. So this was more of a vision I always had. And finally
he was
put
like,
it on
this
paper.
was a design I made in my first semester, and like my family loved it, and they were like, yeah, we want to build this.
Like something like this, something that insinuates that he had been thinking about this for a long time.
Yeah.
It was something that he always wanted to do. So the majority of everything was already set up so that just building the house would take like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
With like concentrated energy on building the house.
Yeah, no, it's such a funny bit to me.
I feel like I always get actually quite giddy when I read a story that involves romance and I see the sentences of, oh, in the first 2 weeks or in the first 3 weeks I was here. Because I'm like, okay, we're going to have some time frame, some scope. This isn't happening in 1 week. We're spending time, But unfortunately, that wasn't really used that much. So
the funny bit there is also that she like also was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get into his office to get access to like all his files and stuff. But she didn't wait for people to become less suspicious. She did it on like her second day or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, girl, of course everyone's still like watching you super closely. You're suspicious.
It's Bridge Kingdom all over again.
Yeah.
Where on the first day she's there,
She's like running around doing like insane acrobatics for no good reason. And it's like, girl, what are you doing? You have time. You have a whole year before your dad's like, hey, where's my information?
I kind of expected to like go through the like more of the year, like a Christmas chapter, you know, or something like that. Show how happy and wholesome and familiar everybody is.
Have like snippets of like her fitting in and interacting with people and like I mean, I guess we had Serena locked up somewhere, so we had to hurry.
Yeah.
But also, like, why did they lock up Serena in like an attic? Like, but seriously, like, if that's what you're gonna do, why not just kill her and save yourself the trouble? Because the dad didn't really want, like...
The dad says why he didn't kill her. He was like, she's the only specimen that they have at hand, because he didn't know about the
yeah,
sister.
But they weren't doing experimentation on her. They were just keeping her in an attic.
He was planning on doing it. Give the man some time. Like,
what's he waiting for though? Like, what is?
You know, he was still thinking about how he's gonna do it.
But also, again, there's no way there aren't like 50,000 specimens running around Europe, and like there being like in-depth papers of longitudinal studies of what like hybrid children look like.
It's really dumb.
What do you mean? That's so stupid. Like, this is also like just such a strange direction for a vampire werewolf romance to go.
Yeah. I agree.
And like, I'm not opposed to people doing like unconventional things, but this wasn't well done, so I'm complaining.
There's a difference between unconventional and just not well thought out.
Yeah, they're just random. Like, this feels very random, because like...
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but like, if you're going to have a werewolf vampire romance, which is going to involve hybrid children, the obvious take is that you're going to do vampire werewolf children so that both sides have a stake in the thing. The Underworld movies already did this 20 years ago.
You saying they had a stake in this kind of made me laugh.
But you don't even have to stake people in this. You can just poison their peanut butter.
But
like, what are we doing here? Why is so much of this book about her missing friend and this random kid? What? Because this book doesn't feel like it's about their love story. It's about this stupid, mystery that no one cares about.
I feel like this would go beyond the, what'd you say, about the scope of it being a love story book. But I'm always also like, I was also wondering why the humans just take it lying down on their stomach. Like, wouldn't you expect the humans to do a very human thing, and that is, develop their own little I
don't understand.
militia?
Like, if you have like a tense situation with humans, there's no way they won't just eradicate you. Like, I'm sorry, but if they're like outnumbering you like 50-1 in the modern world with modern weaponry, you wouldn't be alive anymore. Like, I'm sorry, but like, if they hate you, you're not staying alive. Sorry. Like, that doesn't make sense.
So I was surprised by that. I was thinking like, oh, maybe there's like a subhuman plot, that we're gonna find out, the humans actually have beef with everybody, and that's why they're trying to pit them against each other.
Yeah, it's just so disappointing, because like, nothing interesting happens in here. Either it's bewildering or it's boring. But
it's 400 pages of nothingness.
Yeah, no, again, like, this just made me tired. I wasn't even angry or anything. I was just tired. I was just like, ugh, more Brian.
I feel like this is something we genuinely need to add. This book is 400 pages long. It's not a 200 pager that we're complaining about. It's a long book.
It's
400
for the romance
pages genre.
Are just so uninteresting. I can't.
and unnecessary. And the smut isn't written well. I'm sorry. It just isn't. I know for some people it does something, but I need a little bit more insight and emotions and how they feel about things happening. You know, the goosebumps or stuff like that.
I don't know. I feel like the smut suffers from the same thing the rest does, which is it's very generic. It doesn't feel like personalized to the characters at all.
It's generic. It's very like how I imagine like unhappy straight couple sex is like, you know, the kind of just going through different motions, with the difference that they took some recreational drugs beforehand and that's why they're having fun.
Yeah, and they're like biting each other.
Nibbling a little bit.
Yeah.
That's the So I mean, I probably know what you're gonna say, but what would you rate this book?
I would actually say this is a 2-star out of 5. Because the no, it's super boring, but it is, and that's the thing, it is coherent. Like, the story in itself makes sense. The writing is, like, serviceable, even if it's not interesting. I was super bored, but it was not bad enough to be a 1-star. Like, it's nothing. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not good.
Yeah.
But it's not, like, one... Like, again, we only have 5 stars to work with. And
that's true.
How bad 1-stars get, like... they can be more entertaining by being even worse, but, like... This is just, like, I can understand more why someone might like it than a 1-star, because at least this, like, you know... The grammar makes sense. I guess if you like the quippy one-liner, it's, like, fine. But, like... I mean, it's more like a 1.5 than a 2-star, but, like, we can't do half stars, so...
Yeah. I actually went with a 1-star.
I mean, that's fair. Like, I totally get that.
I feel like... I a lot of times in my ratings, I put in how much I was able to enjoy a book. Like, even if it's bad, right? If I had a fun time trash reading it, I'm gonna give it, like, a better rating. I did not have fun while reading this.
Fair.
Pushed through it. I read the first 20% on one day and then the rest 80% on another day. Like, because I was like, I think if I'm stopping now, I will not pick this up again.
Yeah, fair. That's...
So I was kind of pushing through it, and I just genuinely didn't enjoy it. And the fact that this, like, people are paying money for this, whereas with all the other romance or fantasy thing where we're like, oh, just read fan fiction, it's like a lot more fun. I get it. With this, which is basically just smut and no other plot, I implore you, please just go on any website that hosts, like, creative writing fan fiction.
Dude,
and read
go
it
on
for free
Wattpad
there.
And type in vampire or werewolf, whichever you're more into. And read whatever
Wattpad,
comes up.
Archive of Our Own, something. Just...
Yeah, it's like all the boring parts
free.
are not worth getting to the smut, which is also not good.
Yeah.
Like, just read something that's way hornier from the beginning if that's what you're here for. Because this isn't fun. This isn't fun bad. It's just nothing, man. It's so nothing.
Yeah. And, like, the people giving, like, thumbs up on fan fiction are usually, I feel like, a lot more critical. Because they're like, I either got... like, I got off on this or I didn't. So just sort it by, kudos on Archive of Our Own or on Wattpad and likes. And then go off with that. If just the smut is something that interests you.
This is just so not worth it at all.
It's for free.
So empty. It's so nothing. Again, it's like, there are, like, inklings of interesting ideas, but everything is the most predictable, most uninteresting version that it could be.
I feel like you're gonna get more for your money if you want to have, like, a traditional book. If you jump over your own shadow and go to the erotica section and pick
absolutely.
up some werewolf vampire story there. Because these people have been writing this kind of stuff for a long time.
But even, I think you get better, like, horny romance, weird shit, if you just read some urban fantasy with, like, a hot woman on the cover. And that
Yeah.
implies it
Yeah,
has werewolves in it, because like there might be more
like a
fantasy
six-pack.
aspects, yeah, but it will be very horny, and like you will get your werewolf sex or your vampire sex or both,
Yeah.
depending on what you want.
Just do
Honestly,
that.
maybe just read Twilight, just read a Bella Jacob fic or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think just reading Twilight will give you the same
No, that's
like
true,
what you're looking
but,
for.
like, just
But yeah.
honestly, maybe read 50 Shades of Grey. At least that's funny bad. Like, right, that one's so stupid that it's, you know,
Yeah.
I was so red I must have been the color of the Communist Manifesto, whatever. Like, come on, like, iconic lines.
But yeah, it's
It's not worth it, man. Like, it's not even worth checking out from the library because it's not fun.
no.
Like,
It's
don't do it, man. Don't do this to yourself.
for me it was a genuine, like, it kind of put how do you say it, the nail in the coffin on my and Miss Hazelwood's literary relationship.
I'm so proud of you. We're doing a number of books here where you're like, yeah, this is like after House of Flame and Shadow,
Flame
and you were
Shadow.
like, yeah, I'm not reading the next Sarah J. Maas book if it's like, you know,
I'm not reading the next Crescent City.
Yeah, the next Crescent City book, right? Yeah, because the next one is like the Elaine book or whatever, right? That comes out. Yeah.
I'm very interested.
I'm curious
in the lore
to see.
implications.
I'm so excited to hear from you because I'm not touching that shit.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's just I don't
crazy.
know how representative this is for the romance genre. I hope not that much, but unfortunately, I'm suspecting it probably is. Like when I think about what I've heard of Bridgerton and how well those sold, I feel like this isn't that much different. Just that Bridgerton is hornier.
Oh, as somebody who has read,
Yeah.
how many have I read? 4 of the Bridgerton books. I would say those were more enjoyable than this.
Okay. Yeah, fair
Bridgerton
enough.
has, I'd say, a lot more genuine humor, which makes it go hee hee, you know,
Yeah.
because they behave more like normal people.
Yeah.
It's insanely horny. A lot of the male protagonists, I don't agree with their opinions, especially book 3, which is from Benedict's book. He can rot. I hope that in his season they rewrite a lot of his perspectives on relationships and love. Because it's basically a Cinderella story. I love Sophie, his love interest. She's amazing. Sweetest person ever. She was illegitimate child from a royal or nobleman. He falls in love with her. She's like, I cannot do this secret thing. You have to openly admit that you love me and like accept me, even though I'm currently like, you know, a lower person in society. And he's like, you can't expect me to do that. I'm a noble guy too. Like, just be my mistress. And she even says, did you not listen to what I said?
Yeah.
I'm the result of a relationship like this. And then
I don't want this for my kids.
He still tries to pressure her. And I think in the book she's like 18 or 19 or even younger. And he's in his mid-30s. And then in the end, he realizes, oh, well, but I do love her. And I want to do this. But there's no effect to it because they find out, like I think shortly afterwards, before he makes this public, they find out that she actually is a noble woman.
Ah, okay.
So him coming to that conclusion,
it's not
isn't
meaningful
really,
because he doesn't actually have to act on it because she isn't actually.
Overall, the Bridgerton books, I'd say, are much more...
Okay, fair enough.
They're a lot shorter as well. The Bridgerton books are not long, each book, right? So, somebody who doesn't read a lot of contemporary romance...
But I feel like Ali Hazelwood sells so well and doesn't get a lot of backlash, so I can only assume it is par for the course for general popular...
Well, yeah, I mean, she
romance.
sells well, but with each book, people have been more and more like louder about the fact that she just does a copy and paste with her characters, and that it's kind of getting very repetitive to a point where it kind of gets ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because other romance writers, right, they have like a beach romance, a mountaineering romance, an office romance, a basketball something.
Or even
right?
if they just keep doing office romance, there's different kinds of relationships and like dynamics in there, yeah.
Different kind of archetypes of characters, but so I wouldn't want to knock on the.
Honestly, I think I would have liked this more if it was like a Raylo rebranded vampire werewolf romance, because then there wouldn't have been an annoying kid in it. And they would have had stronger characterizations, even if I wouldn't have liked them again.
Then we would have, okay, since I love doing this in fiction that is obviously has been Raylo, my favorite game is Who is Finn? So, who would be Finn in Bride?
Bold take, but Serena.
But wouldn't Serena be Rose? Because she's like the only other female character.
Yeah. Then Finn would be Owen, I guess.
Maybe.
Maybe.
It's usually, you have to find the Rey and Kylo Ren, which is usually obvious. Then you have to find the Finn and the Poe Dameron. And judging by their relationship towards each other, you can guess whether the person just likes Raylo as a pairing.
Or is also,
You know, whether they're
Finn
also
Poe shipped.
Yeah.
See, I think, like, Finn would have made sense as the other collateral, just, like, from a, like, narrative role. But also, Finn makes sense as Owen because then the werewolf collateral can be Poe.
Oh, you're so smart. Yeah.
you know, in that sense,
we solved it. That would have been
or
still
I guess
a
the
more
werewolf
engaging
collateral
story.
could be Finn because like he used to be a stormtrooper, and like if you're casting the werewolves as like the First Order kind of like vaguely, not from like ideology, but just like as like character group.
Yeah,
dude, would that make Cohen Hux? That would be so fucking funny, man.
I feel like just thematically how we like got to know them. I feel like the vampires would be the First Order.
Theoretically, yes, but authors are scared to make the werewolf the woman and the vampire the man because the vampire men are usually fruity and not like the alpha male energy. That heads struggle with that because you can't have a big, strong, hairy woman as a werewolf. As a love interest. No, the heads would be too scared of it. You can't do it. Yeah. I would like it. I would be all in for like your dainty, fruity vampire boy with like a hot butch werewolf woman. I can see them together. I like it. I'm all for it. I think that's great. But I don't think a Raylo fic writer would do that.
Anna would be BB-8. Yeah, true. Which I love BB-8. I'm not trashing the robot right
Anna
now.
would be better if she just beep booped, honestly. I would like beep boop. If Anna had just been straight up a droid in this, like not even
But her being like the only friend of Misery, BB-8,
BB-8 would be the cat.
With Rey.
BB-8 would be the cat.
Oh, that would also fit very well.
Yeah.
But then we'd have Serena as... Then the Owen is Finn thing would work, because then we'd have Serena as, like, Rey's, like, gay flamboyant friend with the cat.
Ooh, that's true. Ooh, I like that.
This is getting out of hand. But you see,
we're writing Raylo fanfic out of a terrible romance book.
Just by a simple little brain exercise.
Yeah,
you can already improve on this book.
It's like, this book would have been improved if we didn't have an annoying child, but instead a droid with no explanation. I think that would have been great.
But yeah, if you want to entertain yourself, just think, when you think it's a Raylo fanfic, the common point to figure out is if there is a Finn, and who would be the Finn, and that's usually...
also the litmus test for how racist the author is.
Oh, it is. That is a point that is crazy when reading like anything Reylo or anything Star Wars related.
And then you can match it up with, okay, is this more or less racist than episode 9 towards Finn?
Honestly, episode 9 was... Everybody complains about episode 8, but I think episode 9 is the bigger...
worse, yeah.
Yeah, like...
I think with time, people also got more... Like, there are still videos coming out of people, like, doing a 3-hour essay on why episode 9 is the worst thing to happen to Star Wars.
Finally, I knew so many people that were like, oh my god, it's the greatest thing, because, like, a lot of the thing of episode 8 was retcon, and I'm like...
But
no.
Isn't that bad in, like, a trilogy if your third movie retcons shit from the previous one? I may not be an expert, but that does not sound good.
Then the sequels is just something in total that we could make a whole video out as well. We could make our own 6-hour essay on the sequels. At least I could.
You could. I'm not a Star Wars person. I only watched the first one and have heard about the other ones. Yeah.
But it's like mind-boggling. What happened there? Anyway,
this is unrelated to Bride. It is more fun to talk about than Bride, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have subjected yourself to Bride, then you have my condolences, but feel free to leave your opinion in the comments.
Please, honestly.
But also, please do not read it. Don't even read it for the bit. It's not worth it. It is genuinely just not entertaining. It's like, again, eating like plain oatmeal for every meal several days in a row. It's not good. It's just not worth it.
Truly, you're not even gonna... I enjoy my fair amount of trashy and shitty books.
You like having fun. You're like, hee, this is so silly and fun. Where I'm already where my veins at my like temple are bulging because I'm near like killing the author, you know. But like, you weren't even having fun, which I think is a much stronger indictment than me not having fun.
It's like the ultimate like, just.
Yeah, if not even you
negative
can have fun
endorsement.
with it, I think that's like very telling about the quality of the book.
Yeah, I find ability to have fun in a lot of trashy books, and this was not
honestly, maybe I will change my rating to a 1-star. The more I think about it, I'm like, dude, it's just so boring, man.
It was bad.
Maybe that is even worse than like the writing being grammatical, you know, the grammar being bad.
And that's something that 2 people who are not native speakers noticed.
Yeah, I'm not even that picky about like the writing. If I'm like, if it does the job, it does the job. Like, I don't need it to be great. I mean, I'm very happy when it's great. I mean, we talked at length about Memory Called Empire, which has like insanely good prose and descriptive writing. It's so good. But like, this was just, it's not good, man.
Yeah.
Don't do it to yourself. Save yourself while you can.
Save yourself! If you've kept here this long, stay here this long.
If we've kept you this long, enthralled by the train wreck that is Bride.
You know, I was using my extra intraocular muscles to enthrall you to stay here. Thank you so much. Again, if you have already suffered through Bride, feel free to leave your thoughts on it. And yeah, we hope you had fun. And bye-bye.
Bye-bye.